Hello, and welcome to The Pool is Abstract, where we're currently rewatching and dissecting the revived series of Doctor Who, episode by episode. My name is Connor, and with me is the rotting sludge monster that crawled out of my bone palace. It's Charlotte.
What? Hello.
Hello. How you doing?
Just trying to process that.
Yeah, don't worry about it. We're moving on. That seemed to be the theme of this episode, actually. Just moving on. This was a lot, wasn't it?
Yes.
Before we get into anything...
It's almost as if I was correct when I suggested that we should do them episode by episode and not do the two-parter because there's so much to
If
cover.
I like anything, it's consistency, okay? Even when I'm inconsistent, I'm consistent about my inconsistency.
I think at one point in your life, I think you will finally realise that you should listen to me because I'm right.
Right, okay. Well, for everyone listening, we are covering Season 2, or Series 15, if you're nasty, episodes 7 and 8. They're called Wish World and The Reality War, respectively. They aired on the 24th of May and the 31st of May, 2025, both written by Mr. Russell T. Davis and directed by, Alex Sanjiv Pillai. It's the same guy who directed Joy to the World. Makes sense. And I guess what was noteworthy about this was instead of the usual, what was it, 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., time frames that they drop these episodes on iPlayer.
Yeah.
With the exception of the finale, The Reality War aired at exactly the same time on BBC One, iPlayer, Disney Plus, and select cinemas around the country. With that out of the way, I found this very hard to talk about.
Yeah, so just a little information for our listeners. So me, Connor, and a group of our friends went to watch this in the cinema. It was an enjoyable experience. I like watching these things in the cinema.
Yeah.
However, Connor and our dear friend Rob had a bit of a breakdown in a Popeyes not far around the corner, trying to process what happened. And we just kind of watched, I guess.
I believe after this episode finished and we came out of the cinema, first thing I said to you, I think, was, I'm not going to be able to talk about this tomorrow.
Yeah, it was.
So we saw it on the Saturday that it aired. Obviously, the original plan was for this to go up on the Sunday. Womp, didn't happen.
No.
It was never going to happen, guys. There was no way I could process all of that. I still haven't.
No.
But this has got to go up eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, this episode is a lot. It's... Yeah, like I say, Charlotte wanted to cover Wish World when it came out and then cover Reality War when it came out. I wanted some consistency to do the two-parters in one like we have done so far. But yeah, there was a moment where I was like, this is a lot to talk about.
Yes, it is.
And it still is. But what I'm thinking I'm going to do, not to make this run on forever, is maybe save some thoughts for our Season 2 wrap-up.
That's fair enough.
Because I have some thoughts that maybe they are relevant to this episode or the last episode, but more broadly about the show in general, not specifically this story. So maybe I'll save those thoughts for that episode.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, without going into spoilers and just kind of brief thoughts, what did you think of Wish World and The Reality War?
So again, we just a little information. We watched Wish World and then we watched it again before we watched Reality War. They were both in cinema.
Yeah,
back to back.
It was a double bank on the in the cinema experience.
I like Wish World more the second time I watched it.
I did too.
I still enjoyed it quite a lot. It wasn't what I was expecting, but I kind of liked it. It was very peppy, but also quite like...
You disagreed, but I said to you when we watched it that it reminded me a lot of a Stephen Moffat finale. And I think specifically of those kind of like Matt Smith, Series 6, Series 7 ones, where how I think Wish World's the better episode than the Wedding of River song. But how that episode starts and it's like, it doesn't give you any context. It just throws you in the deep end and it's like, oh, Winston Churchill and that Silurian from Hungry Earth are talking and, oh, look, a train goes through the shard and you're just in a world where everything's weird and you don't know why and you kind of have to stay tuned in to find out. It reminded me a lot of that. Just for the listeners, that was Charles' maybe fifth yawn since started recording.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You disagreed when I told you, but it reminded me of that a lot, and I thought this is quite a Stevie Moff.
In that sense, I agree. It is very much like throw you in the deep end. You don't know what's going on, but you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah,
and learn on the way. I agree that, but generally, I don't think it has the Stephen Moffat feel.
No, again, that's more so of what I meant. I didn't necessarily mean it meant. That's Jesus. I can't talk. I didn't necessarily mean that it feels like a Moffat episode in tone, but it was very much a way that he liked to wrap up his series was by doing things like that.
Yeah, I
agree. Like you even think the series 5, the Pandorica opens ended on that cliffhanger of the Doctor being locked in the Pandorica.
Yeah,
and then you expect the next episode to pick up from that, but it doesn't. It picks up with Amy Pond in a world where stars don't exist.
Yeah,
and like. What is the person's like? Don't be silly, Amy. You know stars aren't real, and you're like, what's going on? What? And you have to kind of keep watching to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And it reminded me quite a lot of that. I think I prefer this finale to those ones, though. That's going to be a subjective thing. One thing I will say is from the kind of discourse I've seen from the community, people are either hating the hell out of this and they're like, that's it, Doctor Who is officially dead.
Yeah.
Or you got the people that see the cameos that come a bit later and just clap and love it. And
well, again, information about watching this in the cinema, I found it very interesting because we stood in the lobby for a little bit whilst everybody came out, and it was a mixture of people coming out and being like, oh, I'm so excited what happened. I really like that episode. I can't wait to see where it goes and like the future of Doctor Who. And then you have other people who, they're Who fans. They're dressed up as the Doctor.
Yeah. We had a few people. We had a Matt Smith in there. We had a Shusi. We had a Rani as well.
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
Coming out of the cinema and being like, that show should have died years ago. Oh. So when someone is dressed up as Matt Smith saying that, it's like, oof. I mean, the person dressed up as the Rani also came out and was like, yeah, it should have. And I'm like, wow, I didn't expect that much of a polarizing reaction. But yeah.
All right, here's what I'm going to say. Well, I won't say specifically what because we'll get there in the end. But with the future of the show up in the air at the moment, as far as we're aware, there's no confirmation of a season 3 or a Christmas special, which we would have had this time last year. So as far as we're aware, there's nothing else coming out. There could be a third season coming in like 2027 or something, but there's no confirmation as of yet. So as far as I was aware watching this was the end. This very well could be the end with the whole like Disney deal up in the air. This could be how the show ends. And I think part of the reason for my breakdown was if the show were to end kaput, I would be sad, but it's okay because there's already 26 seasons of the original show. There's 13 seasons of New Who, and then plus these 2 seasons, and there's a whole world of novels and comics and audio dramas out there. I'm not going to be starved for content, do you know what I mean? But if this is the end, and that ending, that cliffhanger, is how the show ends, I will be livid.
I think the issue is because we'll get into this later on because we'll get there. But I have a lot to say. Yeah, as I'm sure to you. Should we actually get into the episode?
Yeah. Okay. So, again, as usual with these episodes, I made notes kind of quickly while watching. I haven't had as much time to soak in and digest, so if my notes are a bit sketchy or I don't remember things quite 100% correctly.
I can remember at least Wish World quite well.
Okay, well, we'll
not
see.
So much reality
I'm just saying, if I get something wrong, be nice.
Yeah.
I'm a man on the brink of sanity, okay? So, right. Yeah. So, Wish World. The episode begins, so we're looking at Bavaria, 1865, and there's someone travelling by horse through a forest, and they arrive outside a house where a man is kind of surprised to see this person. He says he asked for the midwife, but he thought one wasn't coming. But basically, through some kind of miracle, his wife has managed to give birth. Anyway, at this point, the rider removes their hood, and it's the Rani, the new Rani, not Mrs. Flood.
No. What does she call herself?
The Rani.
Doesn't she call herself like the Rani or something like that?
I'm sorry.
She does. It's
The Rani.
yeah. She says something Rani.
Rasputin.
Get them in. She says like the something Rani. She just.
I don't know. Because there's a point, isn't there, where they say we're both the Rani, but she's like, she is a Rani, but I am the Rani.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Something like that. Anyway.
Yes, the new Rani, at
The new
least.
Rani.
Yeah, she gets off the horse and she says something along the lines of, but you've always been lucky, haven't you? Being the seventh son of a seventh son and all that stuff. So she walks inside like the cabin and she meets, well, as she says, she says you're the seventh son of a seventh son. And she says, with 7 sons of your own. And then the camera like whips around to a table with like 6 boys. And she says, lucky number 7. And then the camera like pans over to his wife in bed holding a newborn baby. She kind of just takes the baby.
Yeah. Well,
Doesn't she say like, we want to call him like Sven or something like that, or Bjord or something like
yeah.
that?
She's like, have you thought of a name? And
She says something.
A couple of names, and she's like, no, that won't do. We need something more powerful. And she's like, well,
says,
nobody asked you.
She says like, we thought whatever would be a good name, and she goes, I think it's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, she says he needs a strong name, like, and then says something, and then yeah, this woman's like, well, I don't think it's up to you.
Yeah, it's
Fair
my
enough.
child.
But she's like, no, I will be taken, baby.
Yeah, I love how she calls it baby, and not even I will be taking the baby. She's like, I'll be taking baby.
Yeah. So the mother obviously objects. Her name was it Violette or something like that? Because then the Rani says to the man, your wife is Violet, and she like kisses the baby's head and kind of like blows, and then yeah, the wife just turns into Violets.
And then kids going, Mama, in the background.
What I will say, I think the effect of the flowers is pretty good.
It is.
If that was like a Peter Capaldi episode, that would be a bit sketchy.
Yeah.
But I think it's quite good there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and the man goes, witchcraft.
She's like,
no, it's far older than that, or something like that. And then she like turns to the kids and he goes, run, boys, with like no urgency whatsoever. You think he'd like try and tackle her or something,
Yeah.
but he just goes, run, boys, run, and then just stands there like a melon.
Yeah.
And the kids just look at her and she's like, yeah, waddle away, and then like kisses the baby's head again, and then they turn into ducks. And,
this is
and
so
again,
weird.
he
I
doesn't
love it,
even
though.
react.
No, he's just like, oh.
And yeah, and then she says he's like a wise old owl or something. And then all of a sudden he's an owl
Yeah.
on a stand.
On a stand.
He's got a stand.
He does.
Yeah. And then I love the way she goes, hoot hoot, and then just walks away. Yeah. So
I feel like they're kind of trying to give him Missy vibes a little bit. Not loads.
No,
'cause she's not as.
annoying.
Excuse me.
Sorry. I like Missy, but she's a little annoying.
No, she's not.
I think she's meant to be.
She's lovingly batshit.
No, I don't know. I know we don't get anywhere near as much time with this Rani as we do Missy, but like, I like her performance for what it is.
Yeah.
And there's something really funny. I love the way she goes, hoot hoot, and
Yeah.
then just walks away. I like it a lot.
That's so Missy, though. That is so Missy.
I feel like a lot of people.
Toodaloo.
I feel like a lot of people would draw that comparison, but I don't know. I feel like I would like that less if Missy had done it. I don't know why.
Oh.
I like
Missy.
I do. I like Missy, but
I love Missy. She's my favourite.
Missy verges on like River Song in terms of like.
You don't like a strong, independent, powerful woman, do you?
No, it's the way Stephen Moffat tries to write strong, powerful, independent women.
I think they're great.
Which is
Sit
like,
down,
they're
Connor.
interesting at first, and then the more they appear, the more annoying they become.
I disagree. But anyway,
Yeah,
so she takes the baby. She says about it's a god, doesn't she? Like,
Yeah, I can't remember to what detail here.
But it's quite-
Does she give him his name here?
I don't know.
I can't remember. But she says like, we've got work to do in like 160 years or something.
Yeah.
And then we smash cut to London 2025, and Belinda and John Smith wake up in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's it. John Smith.
The Doctor.
He wakes up and does a very cheesy, like, yawn and, like, stretches his arms out as he
morning, dear.
yeah, morning, darling. And they just give themselves a little peck.
Mwah.
Mwah. Yeah, because she's like, oh, stay. And he's like, I can't. I've got to go to work so we can have this beautiful life we have.
I say,
Yeah, and then at this point, their daughter waddles into the room.
Poppy.
It's Poppy, a.k.a. the space baby, a.k.a. the creepy child from The Story in the Engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, seemingly their daughter. And she walks into the room going, meow. And Belinda's like, what's that? Have you seen a cat? And she goes, meow. And the doctor's like, is that you wanting a cat? And she goes, yeah.
Me. I'm going to try that with you from now on. Just meow.
So, yeah, at this point, Belinda turns on the TV, which, by the way, weird looking remote. The remote control's really weird looking.
I love the set.
Yeah, I mean,
I love that TV and I love the remote. I just love everything.
We see a bit more of this later when they leave the house, but the whole vibe of this is very...
very 60s.
I was thinking 50s, very
50s,
like
60s.
just after the World War when everything was seemingly perfect in the eyes of society back then.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, you think of the cliche, like think of like Fallout, but before the bomb drops.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of like vibe. White picket fences, everything's all kind of like pastel, like yellow or blue, and yeah, just that kind of vibe. So yeah, Belinda turns on the TV. And who's on there? It's Conrad Clark.
In his little suit.
In his lovely little tan beige suit.
With a t-shirt.
Like David Tennant. Yeah, and he's promising perfect weather across the world. He says, good morning, everyone. And then...
Oh, Belinda's like, oh, look, it's Uncle Conrad.
Yeah. So he goes, good morning, everyone. And then the three of them go, good morning, Conrad. And they like wave at the TV. And that's our cold open. Then we get our titles. So there's Charles, seventh yawn.
Oh, go away.
It's hard
Stop
to talk to
putting
you.
me on blast.
I just keep looking at the inside of your mouth. I'm sorry.
Stop.
I'm closed.
I'm currently horizontal.
She is. She's currently lying in a day bed.
I've now moved.
I'm sat in my desk chair. She's lying on the day bed.
I am.
Right, yeah, so that's our cold open. We get our titles. Again, I know I've said this before. Titles are cool, and I just love seeing it in the cinema.
Yeah.
I felt the same thing last season when we watched Empire of Death. Quality of the episode aside, watching this title sequence, which is one of my favourites, I think. It might be my favourite after the 2005 version. Yeah, seeing that in the cinema, it's great. Love it. So yeah, now we cut to breakfast and Conrad is still on the TV and he's reading the story, Doctor Who and the Deadly Wish, which I love. Not only because the book cover is obviously trying to be a riff on those old Harry Potter books.
Yes.
But it's the fact that when he's telling the story, he keeps referring to the Doctor as Doctor Who.
Yeah. Originally, you were like, I hate this. Why does he keep calling him Doctor Who?
No, like, one character's in universe do it. I don't like it. But in this context, it's funny. It makes sense. It's funny. But yeah, it's funny because his story begins like, once upon a time, there was a planet called Gallifrey, and the people of Gallifrey were very clever people. So as he's telling this story, the Doctor and Belinda telling Poppy about the plans they're going to make for tomorrow, May the 24th. They're like, you looking forward to it? And she's like, no. And then like a mug falls onto the floor and smashes. And immediately like Belinda like goes to sweep it up. And the Doctor goes into a cupboard, which he opens up, and there's got like 50 other mugs in there that are identical.
These little yellow.
Yeah.
They look like, this is going to be so random, but you know, like morning breakfast shows.
Yeah.
And they have like a mug, and they always look like this.
Yeah. Yeah, he grabs a new mug, he pops it on the table, and he says something like, that's what you get for doubting things, Poppy. So yeah, he goes to leave, he kisses Belinda goodbye, he goes to step out the door, and someone else is at the door. It's Ruby. Ruby Sunday.
Yeah. She's like, oh.
She's like,
Yeah, she's... Bless her, she's so awkward. She's so awkward.
Yeah, she also looks kind of homeless, doesn't she?
She's like, do I know you? Are you the Doctor?
Yeah.
And he's like, do you need a doctor?
She's like, is your name the Doctor? He's like, why, do you need a doctor? And she's like, no, are you called the Doctor? And he's like, no, I'm called John Smith. And she's like, yeah, but you're not though. Like she does not go about this smart.
No.
And yeah, Belinda's like, who's this? And she comes in like holding Poppy, and John Smith is like, oh, it's no one. And Ruby's like, who are you? And Belinda's like, I'm his wife. This is his kid or whatever. And she's like, you don't have a wife and child. And then they both get really offended.
Yeah.
I was like, how dare you?
He's like, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but I don't appreciate you bringing it to my front door.
He's so British.
It's so British.
Yeah. And then Belinda immediately goes over to the phone. She's like, I have someone expressing doubt. And then Ruby just runs.
Belinda's such a little snitch. She's such a little snitch.
Wait till we get to Carla Sunday, man.
Oh, rough.
Yeah, so Ruby just kind of books it.
Yeah.
She does say her name though. She introduces herself as Ruby. That becomes important later. Yeah, so as Ruby leaves, she bumps into Mel in the streets, who is emptying the bins.
She's putting a little dustpan full of mug
in the bin. Yeah, and we get the shot of when she opens the wheelie bin. The bin is filled with nothing but broken mugs.
Yeah, because all the wheelie bins are like a yellow colour, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they all say slip on the front. So it's like in this world they have no waste, bar the mugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Again, you know this is an alternate reality though, because they still have wheelie bins.
Yeah. Yeah.
For context. For context.
For some really, really just unimportant but random context.
Is it a UK thing or is it just a Wales thing?
It's not. It's just our area thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind then. It's London. Yeah, just for context, in our area, they don't collect waste from wheelie bins anymore.
They took our wheelie bins away from us.
Yeah. We have to just leave bags on the street. I don't know why. It's stupid.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay. If that's just an our area thing, then never mind.
Yeah.
Maybe they still have wheelie bins in London. Yeah. So, she bumps into Mel and she says like, hold on, you're Mel. And then John Smith pops his head around the corner and goes, Melanie, don't talk to her. She's crazy.
She's like, oh.
Yeah. So then Ruby like hurries away. And then John Smith and Mel kind of, I can't remember what they say, but they kind of greet each other. And then they look up and he says something along the lines of, how can anyone doubt a world as beautiful as this? And they look up at the sky. It's a nice day, but there's also bone dinosaurs.
Yeah. It's like, aren't they beautiful creatures?
Yeah. And they're just humongous.
Yeah.
Like massive.
Yeah.
Like makes a T-Rex look like a chihuahua.
Yeah.
Big, like bone dinosaurs.
Yeah. I quite like these.
Yeah, they're cool. They don't really have anything to do. Like
No.
they don't really come into play at all, other than giving units someone to fight. But
It's. We'll get to that. We will.
yeah, we'll get to that.
We'll
Okay.
get to that. Again, just a little context. I've already said this to Connor and some of our other friends. Me and Connor were a little bit later watching Westworld, and Rob sent me a message because the bit with the bone dinosaur was shot in Cardiff outside the BBC Museum.
Yes.
Museums.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And Rob sent me a photo of it and was like, where's the bone dinosaur? And I hadn't watched the episode yet, just thought he was just going mad. I was like, what?
Yeah, so it was on the table.
Because I was zooming in on this photo going, I don't know, where is it?
That was like, where's Wally?
Yeah. I was like, I'm assuming this is something to do with Doctor Who, and I don't quite know yet.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point, John arrives at work. This is that shot we had from the trailers of him in his like blue pinstripe suit and his little hat.
Yeah. I love this outfit.
Yeah, it's good.
So cute.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's good. I like it. Also kind of like, I always forget he's got a mustache. Do you know what I mean? I don't know whether it's because his skin's darker anyway and he obviously isn't like, it doesn't pop out as much, but I always forget the Doctor has a mustache, but there's something so elegant about that mustache with his suit combo.
To be fair, I mean, his hair's been changing a lot. I don't think he has a mustache in every episode.
Does he not? I thought he did.
No, I think some he has like more facial hair, some he has less facial hair. It depends on the episode.
Oh, fair enough. But yeah, as John Smith arrives at work, Ruby's not far behind him.
Yeah.
And John, as he's walking into work, he walks past a woman going, "Any change, mate?" And it's Shirley.
Yeah.
But she doesn't work for UNIT anymore.
No.
She's in a wheelchair outside
Oh.
with a mug, begging for change.
Yeah.
Ruby and Shirley kind of stand next to each other, and they notice that one of the big bone monsters is about to step in the middle of the crowd, but as the foot comes down, it kind of like goes see-through.
Yeah.
And it like, when it lands, like it kind of shakes, but also doesn't really affect anything. It doesn't leave a mark or doesn't like hurt anybody. Because
everybody stops just in the right position.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't step on them, but then it doesn't look like it's really there either.
Yeah, because they say, don't they? They're weird, aren't they? Because it's like they're there, but they're not.
Yeah.
And then, because they're not looking at each other at this point, they're just kind of having this conversation. And then when Ruby looks down and realizes, oh, you're disabled, she's like, oh, I can't talk to you, and then goes to walk away. And oh no, because Shirley first says like, could spare a couple of quid, could you?
And she's like,
then Ruby's like, oh no, I can't talk to you, and then turns around and walks away, and I'm like, oh. But then Ruby has like a thought, and then she turns around and she goes, is your name Shirley? And then Shirley's like, Ruby? And you're like, oh, okay, they remember. But then we cut to inside of work. John Smith has just arrived. I love this.
oh,
I love this whole setup. So
This
they're
is
in
great,
they're in the unit HQ in Unit Tower, but now Unit is different.
yeah. Go on, Connor. What is UNIT called?
So Kate is still the boss.
Yes.
But instead of the Unified Intelligence Task Force, it's the Unified National Insurance Team.
Yeah.
Susan Triad is a tea lady.
Yes.
Notably, I feel like the outfit's exactly the same. Is she the tea lady from the Devil's Court? Because it's the same outfit.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the tea lady again.
Yeah.
Poor Susan Triad. She being Kate basically says like 2 more minutes and you would have been late. And he's like, I did work late yesterday. And she's like, time carries no favors.
She's brutal.
That's just work, isn't it, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he just kind of smiles and he sits down at his desk and he kind of wheels over to Ibrahim, who's working next to him. And he's in a suit. And he kind of encourages him to ask Kate out for dinner. He says like, oh, I hear so-and-so on whatever floor says she really likes Chinese food.
Yeah.
Swears by it. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I should do that. And he's like, hey, think about it. If you marry her, you'll be saving her from working.
Yeah, because she's kind of stuck in a position at the moment. She has to work, but it's not ideal. It's like kind of against the norm.
Yeah.
So you'd be saving her from doing it.
Yeah. And he said, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something along the lines of, do you even think she'd go for someone like me?
Yeah.
And the doctor says, of course, you're a beautiful man. And he doesn't like that.
He just throws himself back and he's like,
Immediately,
what do you mean?
the music goes from this like cheery elevator, like, to immediately like strings rise. And he's like, what do you mean? And the doctor's like, no, wait. He's like, you're a man. How can you find another man beautiful? And he's like, and then he's freaking out. And then a mug smashes behind him on the table.
And he's like, oh, it's just a slip. It's just a slip.
Yeah, it's just a slip. And then, Susan comes over with a dustpan.
She's like, don't worry, dear.
It's all right, I got it. And she offers him like a vanilla wafer, something, whatever she's got. So at this point, they just kind of carry on with work until they see outside a woman.
They say, it's her.
It's her. And they all get up and run to the window to see. And it's the Rani on space scooter.
Sure.
It's like a
Segway.
It's like a Segway that flies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's whizzing through the sky. And everyone's like, wow, it's such an honor to get a sighting or something. And Kate looks out the window and says, she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Which I can't remember if I spoke to you about this, but I did speak to Neve about this when we watched it in the cinema. I find it really interesting that in this world, obviously jumping ahead a little bit, but this is a world that's the creation of Conrad.
Yeah.
And Conrad is very much the kind of guy who can imagine women finding other women beautiful, but not men finding men beautiful.
Well, yeah.
I just found that quite a nice touch because no one really addresses that. But I find it interesting that the Doctor's saying that Ibrahim's a beautiful man, and then he acts out in that way. So to be like, you what?
Yeah.
But Kate says, oh my God, look at her. She's so beautiful. And no one even thinks about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, I think that's quite a nice kind of subtlety. But yeah.
I quite like as well that Kate, she's like, oh, everyone get back to work. That, it's just because, we got stuff to do for tomorrow. And Ibrahim's like, yeah, but look, it's her. And she's like, oh, yes, I guess it is good. I guess we should go and see her.
Yeah. Do you ship them?
Yeah. If they don't get together in the unit spin-off, I swear. It's just me.
It's gonna be like Torchwood again. It's gonna be like Jack and Yanto. It's gonna be a will they, won't they for seasons, and one of them's gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, as the Rani flies past, John says like, oh, I wonder who she is. And then everyone looks at him all weird.
What do you mean?
Yeah, Ibrahim's like, what's wrong with you today? He's like, I don't wonder. She just is.
And they're like, huh.
And they're like, yes, okay.
Yes.
He saved it. They bought that.
Yeah. I mean, I would have expanded, I wonder who she is really on the inside. Like, I wonder how amazing she is. I wonder what she's like to be with. Because they say they haven't been with her. They just see her around now and again. But yeah, other than just being like, oh, yeah, I mean, she just is, isn't she? So yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's like...
He's not good at talking himself out of situations, is he?
No.
Yeah, so at this point... the screen kind of like glitches and we cut back to Conrad talking to the TV. He says, it turns out that Doctor Who wasn't the only Time Lord to survive the Time War. A Time Lady also survived. And what does he say? A Time Lady who was an old friend of the Doctor's who knew a secret from the depths of Time Lord history that was beginning to wake. Ooh. Ooh. He goes, but she wouldn't trust Doctor Who, for he was weak.
So funny.
Yeah, I love it as well because he's reading from this book that's so obviously a riff from those original like UK editions of Harry Potter. Like the font and everything is just like identical, except it's just Shooty just like holding his hand out towards the front of the page. So back at home, Belinda's mother has come over and her auntie. Yeah. They're excited. They're preparing for the next day. I think they refer to May 24th as May Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Poppy's being cheeky, apparently. He's like, are you looking forward to tomorrow? She's like, no.
She's like, oh, you'll have to teach that out of her.
Yeah. The auntie says, like, ooh, she's getting cheeky. Plenty of time to drum that out of her. I'm like, all right, lady, chill out.
And then Belinda's mum's like, oh, I remember when Belinda was like that.
Yeah. And, what does the auntie say? Like, remember what Conrad says? They need to be good girls, then good wives, then good mothers.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah.
Just a gross man.
Yeah. This is a child.
Yeah.
Leave it be.
Yeah, and then they start talking about labour, don't they? Because Belinda's mother says, like, oh, she had like a 24-hour labour with her or something. Yeah. And she says, how long was Poppy? And Belinda's like, how long was what? And she's like, the labour. And then she's like, oh, I can't remember. And she's like, how long was it, Mum? And then her mother is like, oh.
She's like, well, I of course I would have been there. But
yeah, and then the auntie's judging them both.
Yes,
she's
how
like,
could you not remember?
Every mother remembers. And she's like, I can't remember. And then she goes, what was it like, Pops? And then Pops is just sat there like, with her mouth open. Just like, oh.
That made me laugh so much. I was like, why are you asking her?
Yeah. But then at this point...
Child, what was your birth like?
Yeah.
So...
But at this point, another mug smashes.
Yeah.
And again, everyone's like, no matter, it's just a slip. We'll tidy it up. And at this point, we cut to the Rani, who's just come off her space Segway.
Yeah.
And she's landed in the Bone Palace in the sky. It's like a big room made of bone. It looks like, like the dragon armor in Skyrim.
Yeah.
It looks like that if it was a place.
Yeah, it does.
There you go. There's a reference for people.
I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've seen something like this before. It feels very familiar, and I don't know where from.
It's a cool idea.
It is.
I like it. It's different. I know one of the things, like, Russell has a habit of, when he's, like, teasing stories, he'll tease really, like, cryptic things about it. So he'll say, like, hey, for episode 4, it will contain these 3 words, and they'll just be like not at all important to the script. It'll be like giraffe, bongo, and I don't know, carrot or something like that. And he just does that a lot. And one of the things he teased about this episode was Mrs. Flood would reside in the Bone Palace in the sky or something.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, what? It's quite literal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not Mrs. Flood, the Rani arrives at the Bone Palace, and she meets Mrs. Flood inside. Mrs. Flood said, because doesn't the Rani is framed as if she's just popped out to get a recipe.
Yeah. Well, no, she's popped out to go get it's like a specific meat for Conrad's sandwiches.
Yeah, it's like Italian or something.
Yeah, she's like, oh, I've had to go all the way to Italy to get this ham. And she's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mrs. Flood says things are going well. We're getting quite a lot of doubt. What I'll say, she's been fun the entire time, but Anita Dobson's great in this.
She is.
She's so...
I feel for her.
In comparison to the new Rani, she's obviously played a lot more for laughs. She's more comedic, and she's more... Not incompetent, but... She's less of an active
pushover.
Yeah, she's less of an active threat, and she's clearly subservient to the new Rani. But there are a few moments where she does the flip, and I think she's quite good.
I wish we'd had more flip.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But we'll get there.
Still possibly to come, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she says things are going well. We're getting quite a lot of doubt. She says we're getting 9s at this time of the day, and then. I can't remember what they call them. I don't know.
They're really weird, but kind of cool. The way their little fingers are like attached to a puddle.
Yeah, so how many are there? Like 4 of them?
Yeah.
So
7, 9, 9, 3, 9, 9.
Yeah, there's like 4 creatures. They're kind of humanoid, but they have what look like a massive pair of like goggles or something attached to their face with various different like lenses. And they got like long kind of black things that come down from their fingers into like a pool on a table, and they're just going 9 9 9 6 5 4 9 3 7 1 9, and it's kind of just saying numbers.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's like, it's very good time for doubt. We're even getting 9s, and the Rani just goes, yeah, good. Make Conrad a sandwich.
Yeah.
So she does.
She's in a little kitchen area, little kitchenette.
Yeah, she's like cutting she's like cutting the crust off the sandwich.
Yeah. Well, she's buttering it, and then she's cutting the crust off.
She goes, do this, ma'am. Do that, ma'am. Can I cut your toenails, ma'am?
She's like, so sick of it.
Yeah. I thought that was going to come into play at some point. Her being sick of being subservient.
So did I.
It doesn't though, does it?
It really doesn't. I wanted it to flip.
Yeah.
I wanted it to push the other Rani off the Bone Palace. She doesn't though.
No, it probably would have been a better end for that, right?
It would have.
Yeah. So she makes a sandwich, and she goes to the room where Conrad is. And he's talking to the TV, reading the book, and as Mrs. Flood enters with the sandwich, he basically says, like, and now we're going to look at some pictures of India or something.
Yeah.
And then, the screen changes, and he stands up, and he goes over to Mrs. Flood, and, she's like, oh, the mistress gives you a sandwich or whatever. And he's like, is it working out there? Is everything going well? It's been ages since I've seen anybody. And she says, like, oh, you work so hard. And he's like, yeah, I'm really tired. And then he gives her a hug, and it's really sad.
No, I like the fact he's like, is it going out well up there? And she's like, yeah. Would I lie to you? Well, yes, I would, but...
yeah, that's true. Yeah, she goes, well, yes, I would, but not this time.
Yeah. I love her so much. And yeah, the way she kind of like hugs him back is so awkward. And she's like, there.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, how's the baby?
Yeah, so at this point she goes, how is he? And then they look over at a nearby cot, and there's a baby in there. And I think this is where we learn his name. He is Desiderium. I think it's Conrad that says, it's funny, such a small thing, yet he sustains this entire world. So the kind of thing with this is that Desiderium is the god of wishes, and Conrad has basically used that to create this world.
Yeah.
Is the vibe we're going for. But he says, it's funny, he never cries, he only laughs.
And then we get the...
And he picks him up, yeah, and he giggles, he goes, and Conrad goes, he's terrifying. And Mr. Fudge is like, yes, he's terrifying.
The way they're kind of smiling as they're looking at him, it's like, oh, truly awful, yes.
Yeah. So now we cut back to Shirley and Ruby, who are in an encampment full of homeless and largely disabled people. And they all seem to say that they can remember something else that seems like it's just out of reach.
Yeah.
None of their lives quite make sense. Like Shirley says, I'm homeless, I haven't got a penny to my name, yet I have a state-of-the-art wheelchair. I've got, what's the condition she's got?
Spina bifida, I think she said.
She's got a condition. She's like, I should need medication, which I can't afford, so I don't take anything, but I'm all right.
Yeah.
And yeah, things are like kind of as they are, but don't quite make sense. So they're kind of sat in a circle, aren't they, with chairs around them, and they're kind of having this talk. And there's this one guy who's blind, and he kind of floats this idea to Ruby, like a theory he's got. And he says, it all comes down to Conrad, basically, because he doesn't see disabled people, so it's as if they're not real. Because he doesn't see them, they literally don't exist.
He said they're stuck in limbo.
Yeah.
What I like about this interaction, I really like this a lot. Because I like how it feels very warm. It does feel like a proper little community.
Yeah.
And I really like how they've done this. I like the fact as well that Shirley says to Ruby, like, but you don't make any sense because as far as I can see, you don't have any disabilities, do you?
Yeah.
And then Ruby's like, well, I could be a bit taller.
Yeah.
And they're like, ah.
Yeah, and they all have a little laugh, and it's like, yeah, because when the blind guy says, like, it's something to do with Conrad, and Ruby's like, what, do you like sense something? And she's like, oh yeah, because I'm blind, it gives me magical powers.
Yeah, she was like, can you hear something in his voice? And he's like, yeah. She's like, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, they basically kind of theorize that because he can't imagine them, they just kind of fall through the cracks in this reality that he's created. So Shirley says, like, so what do you think, Ruby? And Ruby's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, we don't just sit around here all day complaining. We've got plans. We're going to do something. You in? And Ruby's like, yeah. So I think it's this point we cut to later at night, and John Smith, he's sat by the table drinking whiskey like a depressed man.
Yeah, he's just like
like a true Brit.
The typical thing of like kind of like with one hand like loosening his tie.
Yeah,
and like having
and then he has like a little sip of whiskey and then like kind of swallows it through his teeth, like he's not really enjoying it, but he needs it to, silence the screams.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think Conrad's still on TV.
He is, yeah.
And then it kind of flickers, and someone else is on TV.
It's Rogue.
Yeah.
What's he doing there?
Yeah, it's Rogue. And he goes, Doctor. And John Smith is obviously like, what? And he kind of gets up and he walks over to the TV. Yeah, and it's Rogue stood in front of a not great green screen background of
very bad
hell.
Very bad.
It's literally hell.
I don't
it's literally
understand.
just like fire and smoke.
Because did we know in the last series where he went?
No, because didn't he, like, he fell into that, like, triangle thing. Because it wasn't the concept was that the Doctor wanted to find him, but he could theoretically be anywhere, anytime. So there was no way of finding him.
Yeah.
I don't think that episode specified he was going to end up in hell.
Yeah, because he was just, I'm here in hell, but I don't know how long I've got. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah, apparently this sequence with Jonathan Groff was filmed pretty much right after Rogue wrapped.
Yeah.
So apparently he filmed that thing in secret, no context.
Yeah.
So he went on record as being like, yeah, after I filmed the episode, I had a great time and everything, and then Russell pulled me aside and told me to, like, talk about tables. And I didn't know what it was for, but I assumed it would be important later.
Yeah.
So when, like, before they shoot and everything, they do the table reads.
Yeah.
There's actually some footage online of when, like, Shooty and Millie Gibson and Varda Sathu and all that are doing the table read for this episode.
Yeah.
And then Russell obviously does the narrator bit.
Yeah.
And he literally says, a face appears on the TV, and then literally on the, like, a screen by them, they play the clip of Jonathan Groff just doing this on the green screen.
Yeah.
And you can literally see everybody going, oh, and just like reacting to it. It's quite kind of
quite cute. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Rogue's there. He calls out to the Doctor and he says he's basically only got time for a quick message. And he says, tables don't do that.
No.
He also says, I miss you. Well, more than that, I love you.
Yeah.
And then he disappears. And then at this point, Belinda wakes up in bed because she can hear
Smashing.
and just, smashing everywhere.
One thing I'd like to bring up, which was quite a bit further back, but I think it's important right for this little section, is after Belinda speaks to her mum and her auntie about not knowing or can't remember Poppy's birth, she then runs into the woods and screams.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that bit.
Yeah, she just runs through the fields into the woods.
I'm not going to lie.
It was really weird.
It is weird to the point where when we watched it the second time, I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it doesn't really lead to anything.
No, she's just like,
Yeah, she runs from
there.
the house, through the garden, through the woods on her own, reaches like a creek, and then just goes, ah, and screams into the sky, and then we just smash cut to somewhere else.
Yeah. It's so random.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, good point. So Belinda wakes up in bed to the sound of mugs smashing. And she walks downstairs and she can see John kind of sat at the end of the table, like squatting almost.
Yeah.
He's not on the chair. He's
and there's
just
loads of mugs on the table.
Yeah, and there's like 10 mugs on the table and a bunch of like just shattered china on the floor. And she's like, what are you doing?
He's like, see this?
See this? Yeah. She's like, John, let's go to bed. She's like, I've had enough of this.
He's like, come on, come watch this.
No, come look. And then he pulls a bunch of mugs to the middle and they fall through. We actually see, this is the first time we actually see them slip through the table and smash on the floor. And he's like, see? And she's like, yeah, that's a slip. That's what always happens. What do you mean? And he's like, yeah, but why? Why does it slip? And she's like, they just do.
I like how he like grabs the mugs and he like plonks them quite hard down on the table and he's like, look, it doesn't do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't fall through.
Yeah, she's like, that's just what they do. They slip. And he's like, yeah, but why do they slip? He says, he was right. Tables don't do that. And she goes, who was right? He says, the man on the TV. And she says, what man? And he's like, there was a man on the TV. And he told me tables don't do that. And I really liked him.
This is the point, right? I was like, you bitch. Because...
Well, for Belinda.
Yeah.
Did you think she's just like, oh no, my husband's gay?
Yes. She did. She most certainly did. The little look she gave, and then it instantly cuts to her on the phone going, my husband.
My husband's expressing doubt. Yeah.
She's like, I can deal with you smashing the mugs, but being gay, no.
Yeah, so at this point, the police show up.
Yeah.
And they come in and they literally grab him by the scruff of his neck and drag him out.
I just had a question.
No, I wasn't doubting. I just asked a question.
And she's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she's crying. She's like, I'm sorry. And then at this point, leader of the police, it's Mrs. Flood.
She's so great in a little outfit.
She got a little copper outfit on. She puts a little hat on.
Yeah.
And she comes in with with Belinda's mum. And Belinda's like, Mum, what are you doing here? And Mrs. Flood's basically like, someone's got to look after the kid. Come on, grab her.
And her mum's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And she's like, you knew your husband was doubting because you've been doubting.
Yeah. She's like, that's my job. I cut out the doubt. She's like, it's my, what did she say? Like, it's my job and my very great pleasure.
Yes. And the way she smiles, she's like,
yeah, I want more of this.
Oh.
More of this, Mrs. Flood. Yeah. Yeah, so at this point, the two of them, that's John and Belinda, are taken to the Bone Palace. And the Rani confronts him. And she's like trying to show him like various things.
Yeah, well, initially they make them cross a threshold, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know what this is about, really.
Well...
Yeah, there's basically a veil that is not really that visible. And oh yeah, by the way, some of the Rani's henchmen are the drones from the Interstellar Song Contest. I assume she just reprogrammed them or something.
I mean, it's a wish world. She probably.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, fair enough.
She shows a picture to Conrad. I want some of these.
She can make him look like anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there's this veil, and the drones tell John Smith to cross it, and you assume something is going to happen, but it doesn't.
Because the first time we were watching it, when he crossed over, he kind of like looks like he's had a revelation.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh,
did you think, oh, this is the Doctor or something?
I thought, oh, he remembers now.
Yeah.
But no, he just turns to her and he's like, it's fine,
It's
you can do it
safe, yeah.
too.
And
I'm
then she crosses over, and she's fine.
Yeah.
and then they carry on. Yeah, so this is when the Rani's trying to like, she's showing him stuff around the room.
Yeah.
And she's like, look, it's the seal of Rassilon or whatever. And she's like, look at this. Does this ring a bell?
He's like, what are you on about?
He's like, what are you talking about, lady?
Yeah. Belinda's just shouting shit from the corner. Leave him alone.
Yeah. Rani says that they're old acquaintances.
Yeah.
Belinda's like, come on, we have a daughter. We just want to go home. Please let us go. We won't say anything about this. And the Rani basically says, you don't have a daughter. Shut up.
She's like, what do
She's
you
like,
mean?
how dare you say that? She gets really upset when people tell her that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Rani tells John to remember. She says, we were never really enemies. I never wanted death. I only wanted life. And yeah, this is when she introduces herself as the Rani, as does Mrs. Flood. She's like, we bi-generated. That's become like a funny gag to me, that every time she goes, I am the Rani, and I'm the Rani. We bi-generated.
Yeah.
It's like a Harriet Jones situation. Yeah. So at this point, the Rani takes John over to see Conrad. She's like, oh, maybe this will jog your memory. And she takes him to like this corridor, and she's like, yeah, we're not going any further. I don't trust you.
Yeah.
And she's got her own sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
I quite like it's got like little finger hooks on there.
It reminds me of those, like, you know, those lighters that are like long, like not like a lighter with the wheel, but the ones where you kind of like pull the thing down and it's long and pointy, and you get like a little flame at the end to light a candle or something. You know the ones?
See, it reminds me of you can get like icing guns.
Yeah,
and you
that's
have like the little finger, and you push like this the nub on the end. You push down to like squeeze the icing out. Reminds me of those. It's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, she's like, yeah, we're not going any further, but she sonics the door, and then the door becomes like transparent.
Yeah.
And the Doctor can see Conrad on the other side. He's holding baby Desiderium. And John's like, Conrad? And he's like, hello, Doctor. He's like, why does everyone keep calling me that? And yeah, he basically shows him the baby, the most powerful god in all of the Pantheon. Desiderium, god of wishes. And yeah, Conrad kind of gloats. He's like, last time I saw you, you told me I was nothing. I would be nothing. Look at me now. What do you think of me now? And he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, Conrad was like, it's my time. I'm going to say it. And it's like, he's just looking at this confused man in his work outfit. Just like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. So the Rani takes him back into the main room, and she shows him the Vindicator, which earlier on she like put on a clock.
Yeah.
So it's like the second hand is the Vindicator.
Yeah.
Or the minute hand, one of them. Yeah, and she basically says she's been following him. Obviously, throughout this whole season, he's been using the Vindicator to get himself to this date. And it's basically created a web of energy that will amplify Desiderium's power, I guess. Because Desiderium, despite being a god, doesn't have the ability to create a world.
He doesn't have enough energy to like create a world this size.
I don't know if that's just the limit of his power anyway, or if it's just because he's a baby. But yeah, that's kind of the context of like, they need him ideally as a baby because he's not old enough to basically
make his own decisions.
Yeah, make his own decisions and rebel. But I assume because he's a baby, that's why he doesn't have enough power. I think they do
mention that. I think they do mention the fact that like if he was older, like he could.
Yeah,
he could do.
He
more.
would resist. He'd probably fight back or something.
No, but he would have more power.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. So that's why the Rani needed the Vindicator, because it's kind of pinging across all of time and space. It's generated the power of 1 billion supernovas. That seems a lot.
I'm just gonna say, this is so much flim flam. Makes no fucking sense.
I will
hate this.
I will argue it does make sense. I think it's a good plan. It's a good. We'll get there at the end of part 1. Because I think that's when she fully reveals everything. Yeah. I think it is a good plan. And I was a bit confused the first time, I'm not going to lie. Second time, I was like, do you know what? This does actually make sense. But I think the 1 billion supernovas is mental. That's way too much.
Yes.
That's way too much power for this little guitar to hold. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, anyway, she's using the Vindicator, and I like how she refers to it as the Vindicator, even though the Doctor said it was a vortex indicator, and he only called it the Vindicator for shits and gigs. But now that's just what everyone calls it.
Yeah. I think that is mentioned at some point, though. Like, I think Mrs. Flood picks up on him, like, oh, Vindicator. Ah.
Yeah.
So that's what he's using.
Yeah, so she's using the Vindicator to kind of amplify his power, basically, to make it powerful enough to sustain an entire world.
Yeah.
But she says it's still not enough, though, because doubts seep through. She says doubts can crack the world, but the doubt of a Time Lord can fracture reality. I don't know why.
Well, I like this, because she's trying to get him to think about things. And Belinda's like, everybody have doubts. And she's like, yes, exactly. And then Mrs. Flood is like, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Mrs. Flood is like,
she's like,
the
so
doubts
excited.
aren't the problem. The doubts are the whole point. She's like a dinner lady on crack. She's like, so
I love her so much.
Yeah.
I'm so sad we didn't get more.
Yeah, so at this point, the Rani drags John out onto a balcony, and she shows him the world outside, which has started to fracture, and it's kind of tearing itself apart. There's like cracks everywhere, and there's like purple coming through.
Well, it's the underworld, isn't it?
The underverse, yeah.
Yeah.
She says by fracturing reality, she'll create cracks that will allow her to access the underverse, where she'll be able to find someone.
Yeah.
And that person is Omega.
Yeah. Which...
Omega, for anyone, well, I assume you've listened to this, so you know who Omega is now, but yeah, for anyone who hadn't watched the classic series, Omega was a villain who was implied to be the first Time Lord, basically.
Which I have so... I have so many issues with this two-parter.
I haven't got to this bit of Classic Who yet, so I my knowledge on it isn't great, but I don't know how the Omega being the first Time Lord thing works with the Tecteun Timeless Child stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how that...
It probably doesn't.
I assume it would somehow.
I don't understand how we got where...
Is it like...
There.
Did Tecteun, like, siphon the ability to regenerate from the Timeless Child, but it was Omega who actually wanted to found Time Lords as a civilization, maybe?
Maybe.
I don't know. Tecteun's the scientist and Omega's the politician, maybe.
I guess.
I don't know. But yeah, I know... I can't remember exactly what he says, but Omega's lines here, when we hear him kind of speak, they're taken from a Big Finish story called Intervention Earth. So that's just kind of interesting. This is also the very first time that audio from Big Finish has been used in the TV show.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So again, there's that ongoing debate in the Doctor Who fandom about what's canon, what isn't canon. Big Finish isn't canon, and an argument a lot of people made was the fact that in Night of the Doctor, Paul McGann, the Eighth Doctor, referenced companions from his adventures, Charlie and Sam, and these companions that obviously, because technically the only story he had on screen was the TV movie, that kind of confirmed that Big Finish did happen. It is canon, but some people don't like it, some people pick and choose. But again, this is just another kind of confirmation, really. Again, it's Doctor Who. The TV show itself contradicts itself, but it's essentially a pick your own canon kind of scenario. But yeah, I think it's interesting that that's the first time Big Finish audio has been used in the show.
I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, so as Omega's speaking, the name kind of echoes throughout John's mind, and at this point, he remembers who he is. He realizes that he's the Doctor, and he kind of he's like, I know who I am, and he turns around and the Rani's gone. Yeah. And the door's locked, and he's just standing on a balcony. Yeah,
because earlier on, the two Ranis are talking on the balcony, and Mrs. Flood is just having a chat, and she's like, oh, in some way, I'm your mother.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
You sprung from my loins. And she's like, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, because she's setting the charges at that point, isn't she? Yeah. Well, because that's when she goes to tell her to make the sandwich, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At this point, you see the Rani kind of using his sonic to set these charges ready in place, so it doesn't just seem like it comes from nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But
I do like that little interaction. It kind of gives that more thing.
That's
of like,
the most disgusting thing I've ever heard.
Because Mrs. Flood is just trying to be like, yes, you know.
Yeah. So the Doctor remembers who he is. He realizes now he's on his own, and he's looking out over the balcony, and he can see obviously as the world is kind of tearing apart, buildings are falling down. Mm-hmm. I did notice one of the buildings had Justetta written on it, which I don't know if you remember. I assume probably not. But Justetta was the mining company from the well. But there was like a skyscraper with Justetta written on it that was collapsing. Belinda at this point is being escorted out by the drones.
Yeah.
And as she crosses the threshold from earlier, she disappears.
Yeah.
That's when I thought, okay, the threshold is going to be something.
Yeah.
It's not though, is it?
No.
It doesn't really come up again.
Well, technically it does. The threshold is there for a reason. The Doctor does use it. However, we find out why there's a threshold.
Yeah,
but
kinda. It's a bit wishy-washy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Belinda's disappeared now, seemingly erased from existence, and the Rani and Mrs. Flood at this point are drinking champagne, and they kind of clink their glasses together. They're kind of celebrating a job well done, and the Rani sonics the air, the explosives go off, and the balcony kind of blows off the side of the Bone Palace.
Yeah.
And the Doctor is like crashing down. He's just on the balcony as it's falling, and he's going, Rani! And he says like, I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says something along the lines of, she's real.
Yeah, he's like, I remember who I am, and I have a daughter, and she's real, and that has to mean something.
Yeah, as he's falling to his death.
Yeah. I'd just like, before, because that's where the episode ends.
Yes.
Before we get into that, I kind of want to jump over to Ruby.
Okay.
Because...
Oh, yeah, I kind of forgot the bit where they go on their little stakeout mission.
Yeah, so Ruby, Shirley, and I didn't get the...
I can't remember. One of the other girls from the cam.
Yeah, they
Was she the deaf one?
No.
Oh, no, she was the one that was signing for the deaf one, wasn't she? Yeah.
I think so. So she's... The three of them are kind of trying to get to Conrad. They think he's the issue.
Yes.
And they go underneath the Bone Palace.
Yeah.
And Shirley has an iPad or tablet.
Yeah, it's like a tablet. Sort. Yeah, and she describes it as like a relic from the old world.
And they use it to kind of...
They kind of trace the signal of Conrad's TV broadcast, don't they? So they kind of know he's there.
Yeah. And as this is happening, the world starts falling in.
Yes.
But before that, we learn about what happened with Ruby, because I know you mentioned it earlier.
Oh, about Carla?
About Carla. She said that she was starting to remember these things, and she mentioned it to her mum.
Yes. She said something about not trusting Conrad.
Yeah.
And Carla's like holding another baby.
Yeah.
He's just got a million babies. And she says something like, you can't be doubting Conrad, you get arrested for saying things like that.
Yeah, you can't say that in front of this baby kind of thing.
Yeah, and eventually she does call the authorities.
Yeah.
She says, my daughter's expressing doubt, I think you need to take her away. And based on that, Ruby just leaves, she runs away. Which is sad. It explains why she looks homeless.
Yeah, because she is.
But yeah, it's yet another example of Ruby's beloved adoptive mother, Carla Sunday. Lovely lady, but another time where she's abandoned her daughter.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, so...
End of episode 1.
Wish World.
Wish World.
I like it.
I like it.
There are some things that don't pay off. And
my god, there's so much.
And there are some things that I'm not the biggest fan of, but in general, I enjoy this. I think this is an episode that's more good than it is bad.
I agree. I was really hopeful after watching it. I was let down in a lot of areas with the results after, but I think generally I enjoyed this. I think it was interesting. It leaves you on a good cliffhanger. I like the fact that you're kind of thrown into it and you don't really know what's going on.
Yeah, I think, well, you know how at the beginning, comparing this to something like the Wedding of River Song?
Yeah.
I think the reason I prefer this more to that one is the fact that that is one of those things where you're like, this isn't real immediately. In the sense of like it could be real, but this is going to get overwritten.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? By the end. Like, none of this is actually going to have happened.
Yeah.
Where with this, in Wish World, this doesn't get undone. In the sense of, obviously, the wish is ended, but the things that happen do still happen. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
Kinda.
It's not as if... It wasn't an episode where I was watching the whole thing being like, I can't wait for this to just reset and jump back.
I mean, it does. It does reset and jump back.
Like, technically it does.
Completely, yeah.
But the characters remember what happened in that time frame. Other than something specific we'll get to later.
Some of the characters do, not all. Like, the main characters, like... those basically who were in the unit building.
Yeah, but they are recurring characters, aren't they?
Yeah, but not everybody remembers. It's I
don't know. I think it's just like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right way to explain it, but I don't know. This just felt like it had more impact. Everything that happened in this fake world felt like it had more impact than the stuff that happened in the Wedding of River Song.
I don't.
Maybe it doesn't help that I don't care about any characters in that story. In the Wedding River Song, like, I don't care about Winston Churchill. I don't care about that Silurian guy. I don't care about Kavarian or whatever her name is. Where in this, I'm like, hey, I like Kate and the unit team.
Yeah, but just because it's, you could argue, more effective than the other one, doesn't mean it's necessarily still good.
I think it is. I liked it.
Again, Wish World, yes. I like that.
Okay.
But
we'll get into Reality War in a moment, but yeah. Is there anything about this first part that you wanted to kind of like talk about before just jumping into part 2?
No, because I'm ready to have my gripes.
All right. I'm going to preface this by saying I have my own issues with the Reality War, but based on what I've seen from discourse and stuff online, I think I like this episode more than most people.
Yeah.
And I'll leave that there for now.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, I think my gripe is different to a lot of people's gripes.
Okay.
Because most people seem to be pissed off about the Billy Piper thing.
Whoa, spoilers.
Spoilers. I mean, if you're watching this and you haven't watched it, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's the point, yeah.
But like... But
even people I know who don't watch the show know that.
Yeah, I mean, my teammates in work do not watch Doctor Who, and even they mentioned that this was a thing on the Monday morning or on the Sunday, whenever it was. Yeah.
Should we just get into it and then we'll talk more about our personal
I'll just finish what I was saying.
Okay.
I said my gripe isn't with the Billy Piper thing. That doesn't bother me. I'm okay with that.
I'm not.
I know you're not. I know most people aren't. I'm in the camp of like, okay, wasn't expecting this, but I'm looking forward to see what you do with it. You just better do something good.
I don't think there's anything that could be done about that that's going to make it worth it.
Maybe, but my gripes with this is my usual gripes. We will get into
just bullying Russell T. Dave.
Yes.
Right. So this episode, I think, makes it obvious why we had the same director as Joy to the World.
Yes, it does.
So
how we resolve the Doctor falling to his death. Shall we get into that?
It's a good cliffhanger.
I agree.
And a good resolution, I think.
I agree.
Yeah. So, episode 2, the Reality War begins. The Doctor's falling from his balcony. He's falling into the abyss. And then all of a sudden, we see a doorway open up next to him on the wall. And as it opens up, we see Anita dressed up in her outfit from the Time Hotel.
Yeah.
And she calls him inside.
Yeah. She scoops him out of the sky.
Yeah. So she pulls him through. She closes the door. The balcony obviously hits the floor and gets destroyed. And yeah, the Doctor and Anita are now back in the Time Hotel from Joy to the World. Immediately, again, we were watching this in the cinema, so atmosphere was quite good anyway. But as soon as she appeared, everyone clapped.
Yeah, they did.
I was very happy to see Anita again.
So was I. I liked Anita.
Which brings me to my first complaint.
Oh.
She's got nothing to do in this.
She's
got nothing to do in this story other than hold a door open.
Literally. It annoys me so much.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If this was her first episode, I'd forget she existed.
Oh, completely. I forgot, other than the fact she saved him multiple times through the episode, like now and again they cut back to her and I'd be like, oh yeah, she's holding the door.
She's just standing there, yeah.
She's just standing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
The thing is, she was such a fleshed out character in Joy to the World.
Why would
I
you
liked her a
do
lot.
this? Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought her in the ending of that story being invited to the Time Hotel was just like a cute little thing.
Yeah.
So I was very pleasantly surprised to see that was actually going to come into play here.
I agree.
It's just a shame she has that one scene where she talks about kind of like having a thing for him.
Yeah.
But other than that, she's got nothing to do other than hold a door open.
Well, because for a moment I thought that scene was quite cute.
Right.
And she was like, I kind of popped in on you, and we see some clips of the Doctor through different times.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like the fact that she's kind of checking in on him, but then she sees him with Rogue.
Yeah.
And then she stops checking in on him. And she's like...
Yeah.
And then...
She's like, that's when I met Ricardo or whatever his name is.
And she's like, yeah, I flew straight into whatever his name's arms, and then I got pregnant. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, this is so shit. So shit. Like, why couldn't we have had, like, she was just keeping an eye on him because they were friends?
Yeah, I to be fair, I do think it was kind of implied in Joy to the World that she kind of had stronger feelings for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean in terms of, like, it seems odd to characterize her as like, oh, okay, my romantic interest is not available, so I'm immediately just going to get up the duff.
Yeah, with a random person from, was he HR or something?
Yeah.
It's so, yeah. So I was like, oh, so you kind of ruined her a little bit there. And then you do her dirty by just having to stand in a corner.
Yeah.
Was the actress who plays her actually pregnant?
I don't know.
That's the one reason I wonder why.
Do you reckon that was written in just to explain it?
Maybe written it to explain it, but also maybe why she wouldn't be moving around much. Maybe they were like, oh, well, she'll stand there because then obviously if she was pregnant, you wouldn't. But I guess you could argue in general, even if she wasn't pregnant, you wouldn't want a pregnant character kind of in the midst of a war zone.
Yeah.
So.
That's fair. But yeah, so she opens the door, pulls him into the Time Hotel. They hug each other. They have a little catch up. How you doing? How you been? He says, it's so good to see you. And then he sees she's pregnant. She's like, looks like someone else thinks so too.
I like that.
Yeah. So at this point, he's like, what are you doing? We need to look out there. The world's going to end. And she's like, no, it's not. And then the clock kind of strikes midnight. And she opens the door and the world's fine.
Yeah.
Because she says, when the clock strikes midnight, time resets. We're back on May 23rd again. And this is when we cut to Ruby and Belinda both kind of waking up.
Yeah.
Ruby wakes up and she looks a bit concerned. Belinda wakes up more or less identically to the way she did at the beginning of the last episode, but obviously because John's not there, she kind of looks a bit, I don't know, surprised, I don't know, a bit like confused because he's not there. Yeah. So at this point, I think we also cut to the Rani and Mrs. Flood, who are fixing a lock on Omega's location in the Underverse. They're in the Bone Palace.
They kind of they notice that the Doctor is kind of pulled out.
Yeah, she goes, he has a literal magic door. Where'd he go? And Mrs. Flood's like, it's okay, we got a lock on Omega. Yeah, he's in the Underverse, obviously we know that. But they've kind of they've got a lock on where his location is, so they're gonna like start the work to try and free him.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the bit where you said where Anita's showing the Doctor that she's kind of been keeping an eye on him. This was really weird, right? Because me and Rob were having a conversation before this started, like before the trailers and everything, when we were just sat in the seats, and we were doing our usual we do this all the time, but we make fun of Big Finish for having the most random kind of crossovers and stuff. And you know, a common expression is the Big Finish dartboard, where they essentially throw a dart. This doesn't actually happen.
Yeah.
But they hypothetically throw a dart, and whichever characters they seem to hit, we're like, okay, we'll mash them together into a story. And I remember making a joke, like literally like 10 minutes before the screening started, about, oh yeah, I can't wait to see the Doctor's adventures with Gantok from The Wedding of River Song. And then, yeah, in this episode, when Anita's talking about keeping an eye on him, she literally opens the door to Eleven and Gantok playing live chess. And I was genuinely, in this moment, I looked at Rob and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, so there's him playing live chess. We see the third Doctor being captured by Daleks, and then the bit you said where we see 15 and Rogue dancing together.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a very intimate dance.
Yeah.
And she looks very disappointed, and then she just closes the door behind her. And this is when she explains that her and I think his name's Ricardo. I'm gonna stick with it. How they got together, and he works in HR, and he's lovely apparently.
Yeah.
So at this point, they return to the house, Belinda's house, and
she just opens it into the one of the spare bedrooms.
Yeah, and it's funny because I can't remember exactly how it comes up, but he says something about Poppy, and she says she's not real, and the Doctor flips on his heel immediately and says, "Don't you dare." And again, this isn't John Smith, this is the Doctor.
Yeah.
And he gets very defensive about this, which is interesting. But then obviously, because he got a bit animated, Belinda could hear him downstairs. She's like, "Hello, is anyone there?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's me." And she's like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were home." He's like, "Yeah, I'll be down in a minute." So he walks downstairs, and the music starts building up, and he takes his suit jacket off, and then he kind of drops it on the floor. And as he lets go, seemingly in an instant, he's changed from his suit into his kilt.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how this happens, but
He's the Doctor, just accept it.
Yeah, but I like this outfit, so I'm happy to see it. I just don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same outfit he wore at the beginning of the Robot Revolution when he was in the TARDIS, during the whole slow-mo thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that was supposed to tie in or something, or whether that was just a coincidence he's wearing the same outfit twice. I don't know.
Maybe.
But yeah, it's also the same kind of color scheme as his suit was as well, isn't it? But yeah, he's now in the kilt, and Belinda is in the kitchen with Poppy, and she kind of turns around and just sees him standing there in his kilt, and you're expecting her to be like, "What are you wearing?"
Yeah.
but she doesn't. The camera kind of pushes up close, and then we cut to Anita letting her and Poppy, along with the Doctor, into the Time Hotel. And seemingly as soon as she steps through, Belinda kind of snaps out of some kind of trance.
Yeah.
And she's like, "But I'm Belinda Chandra, and you're the Doctor." And then she looks down at Poppy and is like, "And you're Poppy." And then they all have a nice moment, and they kind of hug, and yeah. And I can't remember who it is, but one of them says I think Belinda says, "We've got a baby." And he says "Yeah, in a single day."
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a nice moment. So at this point now, sorry, go on.
It's something I don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that technically because of how things happen, it changes history. But for the way this ends, we find out that Belinda...
The ending's confusing.
But then it means that this moment makes no sense.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. That bit confuses me.
It makes no sense. It's...
I don't know if it does make sense and I just don't understand, or if it just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
We'll get there towards the end. So the Doctor now uses the Time Hotel door to go to Unit Tower. It's funny because they're all they're all just obviously doing their work, and Kate is there, and then the door opens up and the Doctor steps out in his kilt.
Yeah.
And
they're like, "John,"
she's like,
"What are you doing?"
She's like, "What are you wearing?" And he's opening the door, we see all the cups on the desks fall through and start to shatter, and the illusion seems to break for everyone there. Everyone kind of snaps out of the trance.
Yeah.
There's this funny moment where Ibrahim goes "I'm wearing a suit," and Kate goes, "I'm wearing tweed." And then we just go Susan Twist, Susan Triad being like, "I'm wearing nylon," and the Doctor's face, he's like, "Ooh." Yeah, and then we also see Rose Noble just appear out of thin air, and also the Vlinks.
Well, he kind of a box explodes, and he's in the box.
Yeah, a box explodes, and he's just kind of there in its place now. Yeah, and the Doctor basically says the doors of the Time Hotel, because there's one open on either side. I think.
Yes.
So the Doctor says, like, with the doors open, like, time from reality is, like, basically flowing through, and it's kind of...
letting a draft of real world in.
Yeah, which is kind of snapping everyone out of the wish world, the fake reality, if you like, which will hold as long as the door's kept open, which is why Anita just has to hold open a door for the next hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Rose appears, the Doctor goes over to give her a hug, and he says, like, Conrad could never imagine someone like you, so that's why you basically didn't exist.
But then But there's a difference between Conrad could never imagine someone like you, and because people with disabilities, they said, like, he forgets about them or doesn't think about them.
Yeah. Tell you what, I'm surprised, because she literally just fades out of existence. I'm surprised that Rose doesn't exist, but just as a bloke.
Maybe they didn't want to.
Yeah, I get Russell not wanting to touch that.
Yeah.
But I feel like, based on what we know about Conrad...
Yeah.
I feel like that's what would happen.
Well, yeah. Either that or just, again, but I know you probably wouldn't want to touch that either, but, like, having her be with, like, Shirley and the other people.
Oh, in the camp.
In the camp. A kind of thing of, like, the forgotten people. The people that Conrad wouldn't put in his perfect world, but they're kind of, like, stuck in limbo because they still do exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess that kind of gets her there when she's needed.
Yeah. So yeah, at this point, Kate looks out the window, sees the bone dinosaurs, and she's like, "What is that?" And the Doctor says, "That's a bone beast." He says, when two realities rub together, they create like a friction, and the friction creates atoms, and the bone beasts are drawn to it because they feed on it.
Yeah, they're like mites.
Yeah.
He basically says.
Sure.
I hate this.
It's like
I hate this so
it's
much.
something that's like, it is very Doctor Who, but I'm also like, it's kind of an underwhelming.
It's nothing. It's just nothing.
Yeah, because they don't. This is what I mean. Like they're a cool visual, and it was a really intriguing thing in Wish World, but in reality, they have no reason to be here other than the fight sequence that comes up soon.
Which I hate.
I thought you would.
Well, no, it just, oh God, this just annoys me so much.
Right. So, yeah, the Doctor introduces Belinda and Poppy to the group.
Yeah.
He says, "This is Belinda, this is my daughter."
And they're all like, "What?"
And, yeah, Kate goes, "Well, now you're going too far." Yeah, and at this point, units reveal that they've got, this is so like Mission Impossible, they got microchips installed in all of units' employees.
And they flash on their necks. So stupid.
Yeah, so they activate all the microchips, and yeah, at this point we see all the unit employees kind of like snap back to reality.
Activate.
Yeah, yeah, they're like sleeper agents. Yeah, they activate. So we see Ruby at home. That bit from last episode where Carla's like, "You can't say things like that."
Yeah.
We see that scene happen.
Yeah.
But Ruby's neck starts flashing, and she's like, "Bye, Mum, gotta go."
Yeah.
Even Cherry comes around the corner, and she's like, "What are you doing?"
I wonder if she noticed the flashing on her neck. She's like, what is that?
Yeah, Ruby's just like, "What I do best," and she puts on a coat and just fucks off, basically.
I love it. Poor Cherry's like, what's that supposed to be? Where are you going?
Yeah. Yeah, we see Mel is like putting the bins out again.
Yeah.
And then her neck starts flashing, so then she just hops on a moped.
Do you know what I quite like? Because, again, I didn't notice I noticed her bin was full of mugs, but I didn't, like, clock onto it until the rewatch. The fact that, because she mentions that she lives alone.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that, and then especially the fact that this is only 1 day cycle.
Yeah.
Mel's by the morning has filled her bin with mugs. You'd give up, wouldn't you? At that point, you'd like, I'll just stay away from them. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how it's only the mugs that fall through, though, isn't it? Mm. I get the doubts would kind of cause reality to shift for a second, so things fall through the tables, but it's only ever the mugs.
I love it. Do you know what it should have been?
Bowl of cereal.
No, it should have been like glasses. So the glass is shattering.
Bad.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that's probably like, you know, the you know, where they say like the glass shatters and it's like that realization kind of thing of like.
Do people say that?
Yeah, it's a glass shattering moment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Mel hops on a moped, and my personal favorite of the unit activation bits is Shirley and and that woman from the camp.
She's like, "Where are you going?"
She's like, "I'm going to work," and
Yeah.
and then she presses a button on her wheelchair and she blasts off. She leaves fire. She leaves a path of fire.
So fucking stupid.
Oh, I loved it, honestly.
Fire.
Yeah, it's dumb, but I subscribe to the fact that this is dumb from the Star Beast when she had rockets installed in her wheelchair.
Yeah, but why would she leave flame like?
Because she went so fast.
What?
Honestly, yes, it's dumb, but I'd be lying if I say I didn't really enjoy it.
I like the fact that Conrad's world, like, this isn't normal, but in Conrad's world, he's like, she went so fast that there was flames.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's like, or anything that moves above a certain speed leaves flames.
He's just a boy at heart. Isn't
Yeah. Yeah.
he? And then it went. Zoom.
Zoom.
Yeah. This is the really uncomfortable bit where the Rani goes to visit Conrad, and she's. I don't know. It's like flirting, but it's not. She's obviously manipulating him.
Yeah.
Because when she comes in, he says like, "I would do anything for you, mistress," and she's like, "You are absurdly handsome. I could turn you sideways and serve olives on those dimples," or whatever she says.
I'm not gonna lie, it made me laugh. And he's like,
Yeah, he looks really happy about it. Yeah, he basically says, "I will do anything for you,"
yeah,
and she calls him Connie.
yeah,
Don't like that.
Connie.
Yeah, and she basically asks him. She says, "This world is created by your wish. This is your world. I need you to tell me where the Doctor is. Can you find that out for me?" So he like closes his eyes to obviously go to do that, and we cut to Unit Tower. So we kind of assume that he's tracked him down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point, the sleeper agents all arrive. Ruby and Shirley kind of rock up at the same time, and then Mel pulls in on her moped.
And now she has a perm.
Yeah, this is obviously a throwback to her hair from the 80s. How this happened in the span of her... Because she didn't have the hair like that before she got on the moped. So it's like... It's as if she has crazy helmet hair, but her helmet hair gave her an 80s perm.
Do you think it's something to do with like the wish? Because all of a sudden, when we cut back, I don't, as far as I can remember, unit inside looks different, and people like the unit team are now wearing their normal outfits.
It is, to be fair, I don't think that's part of the wish, because it is kind of implied that they've changed. Because Shirley, the whole time, Shirley is still wearing the same clothes, and when Kate walks in, she's kind of adjusting her coat jacket as if she's just changed. So I think they've literally just got... Yeah, because when Ibrahim walks in as well, he's like adjusting his like armor.
Because I
His,
didn't...
like bulletproof vest or whatever he's got.
I didn't know whether like the fact that because reality was soaking through, their outfits were and their styles were made by the wish, and because the wish is kind of being blocked out, they're reverting back. Maybe hence why the
thing
Doctor...
is, Mel never had a perm in the other episodes. Obviously, she did in the 80s, but like
Maybe.
when she was in The Giggle...
We don't know. She might have had a new perm before all of this happened.
I guess. It doesn't look good.
It looks a bit odd, I'm not going to lie.
It suited her in the 80s when it was the style and she was a bit younger. Watching her in that room, pull her helmet off when she gets off that moped. No.
I was a bit confused because I haven't seen the original Who series.
Yeah.
So I was like, why is Mel all of a sudden got a face full of makeup and a perm? Like, what happens? What's, you know, those salon things? I know we've discussed them before, but like the things that you put on top of your head and like your hair sets. Yeah. I thought it was going to be like, she's done that on the way. She's like setting a perm as she's riding.
Yeah. So at this point, the Doctor pulls Susan Triad over, and he asks her to make a zero room. And he kind of explains what's going on to everyone. what he describes as the Unholy Trinity. He says, God of Wishes, Crazy Time Lady, Conrad Clark.
Yeah.
Fair enough. The Doctor says little scraps of memories have manifested into specific things in the Wish world, like Poppy. It's kind of implied because Ruby says something like, wait, ages ago we came across a baby named Poppy, obviously referring to space babies. And Belinda's like, what does that mean? And the Doctor's like, that just means it's more amazing. I'm like,
I don't understand why he's so... the only way I can explain it, or that my brain makes sense of it, is the fact that we don't even get the response, like what's it called, the outcome to this, but the fact that Susan's been trying to contact him and has been coming up.
yeah.
So I'm assuming that's why he's latching on to Poppy so much. Maybe he doesn't know who his child is, but he knows he has a granddaughter. So
Yeah.
he's like latching on to Poppy, thinking, well, this is my daughter. This is how I had a daughter. And therefore, this is how Susan came about.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
other than that, it makes no sense why all of a sudden the Doctor would be clinging on to the idea of a child so much.
Yeah.
Especially because it makes no sense that
Yeah.
he would have one.
I think this is the point where the Rani seems to teleport there to
Yeah.
Unit Tower, and she basically explains how she survived the Time Lords being wiped out.
Yeah.
Obviously, not, again, just as a reminder for everybody, this is not the Time War causing the Time Lords to be wiped out. This is after Gallifrey was saved and Chris Chibnall killed them off again.
Yeah.
So I think the Master... what was it, like a DNA bomb or something like that? It was like designed to wipe out all the Time Lords specifically, something like that.
And she says she changed her DNA.
Yeah, this is something that doesn't make sense, but I'll get to this in a minute. But yeah, she basically, the Doctor says, how did you survive? She says, I saw the genetic explosion coming. How? Don't know. She says, I flipped my DNA, making a biological sidestep.
Yeah.
That explains why you didn't die, but it brings up a new issue I'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
So he asks how she got this, since obviously she's got the only TARDIS in existence, and this is when she reveals that she has a time ring, and she's been following the Doctor around. She tells Ruby and Belinda, like, oh god, it was a chore having to live with you guys.
Yeah.
And
They're like, what do you mean?
Ruby's like, what do you mean? I've never seen you before in my life. And then Mrs. Flood rocks up as well.
She's like, that's my neighbour.
And Belinda's like, that's my neighbour.
And she's like,
And this is when they do it again. She goes, I'm the Rani, and I'm the Rani. We've bi-generated.
I like how Mrs. Flood goes, oh, it took a lot of planning to be able to keep an eye on you both.
Yeah. And then the Rani's just like, doesn't like being upstage and just like clicks her fingers and sends her away.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the... I can't remember if it was this episode or the last one. But there's one of the episodes where... I think it might be the beginning of this one. You know, when the Doctor's disappeared in the time door, and the Rani kind of works out that it leads to the Time Hotel.
Yeah.
And says, you were supposed to keep an eye on him. And she says, like, all right, so I had Christmas off.
Yeah.
But so did you. We're the same person.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the start of this one.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously Mrs. Flood and the Rani are the same person. Belinda and Ruby are like, what the hell's going on? And yeah, the Rani basically says her plan is to bring Omega back and use his DNA to revive the Time Lords. The Doctor obviously isn't happy about it. He says Omega is like a mad titan that was sentenced to the Underverse for a reason. And Mel says, not to be funny or anything, but why can't you two repopulate the race instead?
Yeah.
And this is when the Doctor says that Time Lords are sterile, and that's why Poppy is so special. Now, immediately, my thought was, oh my god, this episode's making Looms canon.
Yeah, because funny enough, we had been discussing, because we went to...
This is the second thing that we discussed not long before the episode started.
We were literally talking about looms we went to Weatherspoons beforehand.
Yeah.
And we were talking about looms then.
Again, for context, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, but looms was something that was introduced in a novel from the 80s called Lung Barrow. and it basically talks into how Time Lords reproduce, because they don't biologically reproduce the way like most other mammals do. They have these machines called looms where they kind of have to weave other ones into creation. Very controversial in the community. So at this moment I was like, oh my god, is this episode making looms canon? But I don't think it is, because I think it's just implied that the DNA bomb that the Master used to wipe the Time Lords out made them infertile. Not that they've always been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's implying, which is a bit less canon breaking.
But then the Doctor wasn't there.
No.
And if she took a biological sidestep...
Well, this is my thing now, right? So I think it's Rose that says, what about Poppy? Doesn't Poppy solve all these problems?
Yeah.
And the Rani... There's this bit where the Rani's like, yeah, except... And everyone's like, what? She goes, the mother.
Yeah.
And everyone's... Belinda's like, what? What about me? And she's like, well, you're human. And then everyone kind of goes, ugh, and just rolls their eyes.
I know this sounds terrible, but I was like, I'm kind of with her.
Well, that's
I'm kind of with her.
She says, like, basically, Poppy's contaminated because she's not pure Time
I
Lord,
wouldn't
yeah?
use those words, but yeah.
But that's essentially what she's getting at.
Yeah.
But this is my point, where I'm like, Rani, so are you.
Well, yeah.
You did a biological sidestep.
Yeah.
So you're not a Time Lord either. So what's this whole thing about purity? You're not even one of them.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
But I mean, fair.
What do you mean fair? The plan doesn't make sense.
Also, quick question.
Well, it doesn't make sense. I just don't get the methodology of it.
Quick question.
Yeah.
And you may be like, well, it's... But River Song was kind of a Time Lord, wasn't she? Not really, but she had some of its abilities because she was conceived...
Not a Time Lord, but had the ability to regenerate.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty... I mean... That's pretty Time Lordy. Maybe not directly. She hasn't got two hearts, but...
Well, not a Time Lord then, isn't it? That's what I mean. If
you really wanted that, you could stick another heart in her. I'm sure she'd be fine.
That's my point. If the Rani's whole thing is about like being purity and being pure, and that's why she wants Omega, because she wants to be pure to the original Time Lords, well then, yeah, getting something... do you know what I mean? It's just saying, oh, well, you can regenerate, you're basically a Time Lord, is like saying, well, you've got a liver, you're basically human.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think it's a big thing, isn't it, to be able to...
Well, yeah, it is a big thing, but I don't think that's the sole factor that makes up a Time Lord.
Maybe, but what I will get... we won't get into this, but you were telling me about the other people who live on Gallifrey.
The Shobogans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have two hearts? Like...
I don't know.
Because really, as far as I'm aware from what you've said, the main thing that kind of separates them from the Time Lords is the ability to regenerate and long life.
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't dived into enough of Classic Who or the expanded universe of this kind of very niche specific subject
niche.
to be a source of information on it. But yeah, certain Shobogans are branched off into what they call Time Lords. Like, they're both natives to Gallifrey, but the whole point is to separate the fact that not all Gallifreyans are Time Lords.
Yeah.
Whether or not Shobogans have two hearts, I don't know.
Yeah.
Two hearts could be a Time Lord thing, or it could just be a Gallifreyan thing. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sure the wiki will tell you.
Sure.
Yeah, what were we talking about?
We're talking about the Rani.
The Rani's basically dismissing Poppy as being a half-breed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Doctor basically also comes to the realization that when the wish ends, she's going to disappear.
Yeah.
And Belinda's not happy about it. So the Rani and the Doctor kind of point their sonics at each other. And he's like, I won't let you do this. And they both kind of like turn them on and do the bzzz thing. And his sonic sparks out and he drops it. And she's like, you're so predictable, Doctor. Bye-bye. And then disappears. So she teleports away and she basically carries on with the plan to start extracting Omega. And when she gets back, her and Mrs. Flood also, against a bit of flim-flam, but they say like they're going to change the particles or the atoms surrounding Unit Tower to make the Bone Beasts identify as a threat or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know how they can just do that.
I guess they have Conrad.
I guess. But it's implied, because they do this at like a computer. So it's kind of implied that it's a tech thing.
Maybe.
But it's funny because it's like, this kind of makes it seem like the Bone Beasts were part of their plan to be there. When I'm like, I thought the Bone Beasts were just there by chance because there were two realities rubbing together.
Maybe. Oh,
I don't know.
it makes no sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, they basically send the Bone Beasts to attack Unit Tower purely as a distraction, really.
Yeah.
So Unit are now scrambling to defend themselves. Everything, like, an alarm starts going off. The room's flashing red. The Doctor's like, "Oh no, they've sent the Bone Beasts to attack. Everyone get ready." So the Doctor and Susan look at the Zero Room on floor like -10 or whatever it is. The Doctor sees it as like basically the ideal solution to protect Poppy. The plan is to pop her in there, basically ride this thing out, and when the wish is reversed, Poppy should be okay when she comes out, because it's a room that exists outside of time and space and theoretically outside of reality.
Is it the same as from, what's it called? Doomsday. Army of Ghosts Doomsday.
On the Void ship.
The Void. Is it basically a Void ship, this thing?
I don't know. As far as I'm aware, the Zero Room is something from Classic Who. It was in a previous episode in the original run.
Because it sounds like a Void ship.
Yeah, I know. By description, it does. Whether or not this Zero Room would exist in the Void, I don't know.
Because, that is what this is. It's the space between two worlds is the Void.
Yeah.
So, technically, for it to exist through that, it has to be a Void ship. And the fact that they say that you don't age or nothing happens within it, you're not affected by time or consciousness, you just kind of stuck in limbo in this thing. That's exactly what happened with the Daleks.
Yeah.
So it's he basically just whips up a Void ship.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does make sense, because he doesn't do it. At does it, because Unit have the schematics to make one.
But he gives her the plans.
No, she had the plans already. She says at one point like she'd been working on it for years or something.
I thought he gave it. I'm probably remembering this correctly, but
either way, she whips it up real quick.
Really fucking quick, yeah.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. Stupidly quick, some would say.
Yeah. So, Belinda insists on going in as well. She's like, "I'm not going to leave my daughter alone in there." And the Doctor basically says, "Are you sure? Because if you go in there and we all die, no one's going to be there to let you out.
Yeah.
And you're not going to age, you're not going to die, you're not going to suffocate, you're just going to be forever." And she's basically like, "Yep, because if I don't do it, then that's what's going to happen to my daughter anyway. So I'd rather us do it together." Which, fair enough, I guess.
I thought it'd be nice if they actually took something in.
It's like Rubik's Cube or...
Yeah, some, colouring books. Yeah.
No, that's rubbish though, because once you colour them in, what do you do?
You could make things out of them.
No, you need something that's
origami.
Just get this one piece of paper
that's
just like crumpled in a million different angles. You need something that's reusable. Do you know what I mean? Play-Doh.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So Belinda and Poppy go inside, and Unit fit Ruby out with Project Indigo. Now, I'm not sure if you remember. We haven't got that yet in the rewatch, but Project Indigo is the makeshift teleportation software that Unit were developing, that Martha tested out in The Stolen Earth when she disappears, when she's looking for the Osterhagen key and all that stuff. So that's a fun little callback, I guess, that they've kind of perfected this software now, I guess, or hardware, or both. So they're like, "So what's the plan, Doc?" And he basically says, "I tricked the Rani." When they had their little Sonic off and his Sonic kind of like fizzed out of his hands, he said he tricked her, he copied her coding. And then he presses the button and he summons her little Segway, her little hovercraft. And it appears and he hops on and he basically says like, "Hey, if I die, love you."
And then he just rides off.
And then he just flies off. I skipped over something here, but he basically says the Bone Palace has got like a protection thing around it. So if Ruby just tries to teleport in, it's just gonna like just tear it to pieces. So he has to like pierce the protection first by going in. I don't know why this is in the story, I'm not going to lie. Because it doesn't really matter.
No.
Because we get the shot of him flying the Segway thing, and obviously, at this point I will say, all of Unit, because the Bone Beasts are attacking Unit Tower. Unit Tower's a big gun, by the way, now.
Yeah, it just spins.
Obviously, they have that cannon that was on the helipad. That was there in, like, the giggle, so that's, like, fine. Also, they say, like, Kate says, like, fire galvanic beams. Remember, like, galvanic radiation is what's on midnight. So, like, that's crazy that they've just got that. But that's me. I'm okay with the cannon. For me, it's when she turns, like, a big wheel. It's like a pirate ship wheel. And then the building turns on its axis, like the mid, like the top half of a Dalek.
Yeah.
When the bottom half stays still, but the top half spins, the building does that.
Again, all I'm going to say is Conrad's looking out the window and he's like, wouldn't it be really cool if it spun?
Well, that's what I mean.
He's going, pew,
but
pew, pew.
this isn't even a thing, because the doors are open to the Time Hotel. It actually has this. Unit Tower has this. This isn't a Wish World thing.
Yeah, but maybe
because the office isn't the insurance thing anymore.
Yeah, but maybe it's not going throughout the whole building. Maybe it's just going in the building. It's like a draft. Do you
There
mean
is this funny thing, though, isn't there? When the building's turning and everyone kind of starts, like, leaning left and right and they kind of start tilting and then the door nearly closes and then he has to go,
Yeah.
like pin it open.
Why couldn't she just, like,
Yeah, because this whole
pried
time
it open and sat down?
This whole time Anita's still just holding a door open.
Yeah. I bet you forgot about this in the podcast as well. We did. Remember that?
Yeah, so whilst all this is going on, there's a big gunfight. The bone dinosaurs like rah, and they're trying to attack the building, and then they're all going pew 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 pew, and there's
I feel bad for these things.
There's a big Star Wars gunfight going on, and the Doctor's flying in between it on this like Segway.
Oh my god!
It's playing his theme. It's playing 15's theme.
I like this.
Yeah, it's good.
I like when his theme plays. I feel all pepped up. I'm like, yeah, he's gonna do something.
He's doing Doctor things.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. He's like dodging the lasers and stuff.
Yeah.
And then he flies into the Bone Palace. He has a bit of a rough landing. He like crash lands, pierces the protection, and then Ruby can just go peep and just go in.
Yeah.
And it's so quick, and her being delayed doesn't play into the story at all, which makes me wonder why it was even a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, so Ruby kind of teleports straight into the room where Conrad is. Mm-hmm. Sure. He sees her and he just points a gun at her. And he's like, "What, you didn't think I was expecting you?" I'm like, why would you expect her to teleport in?
Yeah.
I don't know. Weird.
Maybe that's what he wanted.
He wished it to be.
He was like, please.
Give me a hot blonde.
Yeah. Oh shit, not that one.
No, literally any other one. Yeah, so the Rani and Mrs. Flood basically convince the Doctor that meeting Omega's worth a shot at least. She's like, "Do you not want to meet him?" And he's like, "Actually, yeah."
He's like, yeah, go on then.
Yeah, go on, all right. So this is when we see the seal of Rassilon, and it kind of changes, and it opens like a big door, and Omega's going to come out, but instead of being a man with like a Witch King of Angmar helmet, he's now
a claw.
But he's more than that.
Well,
he's a Dark Souls boss.
He's a claw, and then a skeleton?
He's like a big, giant skeleton sludge monster man.
But he's got a thick behind, and it's stopping him from getting through. He's got that booty.
Oh no, his dump are too big to fit through the door.
It is, because his hips is like what's...
His hips don't lie, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Rani's like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And the Doctor's like, "Hey, the Underverse is a place of myths, so the myths have warped Omega, turning him into
legend."
Yeah, he is the Mad Titan or whatever.
This is so stupid.
I wouldn't be as bothered by this if they hadn't done the exact same thing to Sutek last season, which is get this classic Who villain who's got a really cool, unique design. Humanoid, you could get an actual like high caliber actor in to play this role. Yeah. Have him have a helmet on and then take it off for some reason and then have it be someone important. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, no, just turn him into a big CGI monster that you have no sense of like space or.
No.
It's just
and
like,
then, oh god, it's the same issue, right? This annoyed me so much because. Again, it's that whole thing of like this big thing this terrible thing, and then it's like, oh, easily defeated. There you go.
Yeah, it was
Done.
very quick. It was even quicker than Sutek, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It really was. It makes
Because at least with Sutek, like, Sutek did a lot of stuff before
Yeah.
they defeated him. He, like, dusted the world.
yeah,
Omega does nothing
Literally
other than pick up the Rani
an eater.
and swallow her whole. And that's the end of the Rani.
I love a bracelet falls on the ground and rolls, and then Mrs. Flood's like, "Yep, I'm out."
It's like, well, so much for the 2 Ranis. Peace. And then
Yeah.
just disappears.
But
The
my
Doctor's like, oh, thanks.
my question here, right? Mrs. Flood is taking that very well.
Yeah, for basically knowing, hey, that's how I'm going to die.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Once this one is over, it goes no further. Maybe that's why she was like, "I'm going." That was my future. So,
If he picked up Mrs. Flood and swallowed her, would the Rani have just like faded away?
no, because technically, as we said before, she may have been sucked back to the moment that they
Yeah, good point.
bi-generated.
Fair. So the Doctor's now on his own. He's like, oh, thanks for that.
Yeah,
Obviously, Omega's this big, scary monster thing. The Doctor's like backing up against the wall.
he's like, "Ah, Doctor."
like- Yeah, he's like, little Doctor.
He's like, "Yep, that's me."
He's like, hello, Omega. He's like, oh man, if only I had a weapon. And then he's backing up and he kind of hits the wall. And it's the wall with the clock. And he looks up and just sees the Vindicator.
Yeah,
And he's like,
so stupid.
So he picks up the Vindicator and he says, the power of 1 billion supernovas. And then he turns out and he fires it like a gun straight into Omega's face.
And Omega takes it pretty well.
Yeah, it doesn't just kill him on the spot.
No, it's kind of like,
It's like disintegrating him slowly.
I was gonna say, like, no, it's kind of like I don't know, like if somebody was trying to like get through your bedroom door or window, and
Right.
you've got a hose pipe, and you're kind of squirting into their face, and they're kind of like, what are you doing? Stop! They're kind of backing away. They're like, It's not actually doing any damage. It's just like uncomfortable and a bit weird.
Yeah. That's exactly what it's like. Yeah.
It's literally like that. It doesn't look like it's doing any damage
Yeah.
to him.
And he forces him back through the portal, and then the door closes, and then that's literally it. That's the Rani
That is
gone.
it.
That's Omega gone. And Mrs. Flood has disappeared. That's it. That's all the threats gone.
It's so stupid. It infuriated me so much.
It makes me wonder how different this finale was before Ncuti announced he was going. Because obviously the rest of this episode now is dedicated to giving him a reason to go.
Do we know when Ncuti decided to go?
We don't know specifically. All we know is Ncuti mentioned something about filming a third series or getting ready to film a third series like sometime last year.
Yeah.
And we know that this series, I can't remember if it's this series or this episode, had heavy reshoots early this year.
Yeah.
Like very late, like February, like quite late.
Yeah.
So I think the general consensus is that Ncuti decided to leave relatively recently, and they had to do some reshoots and obviously write this ending in. So yeah, I do wonder if maybe this is the consequence of that. It might not be, but I wonder, obviously, without needing to tack on this whole like 20-minute ending, would these 2 villains have been dispatched this quickly?
But even then, I think you could have just killed this Doctor off in any other way than the way they did.
All right, we'll save this when we get there. But I will say I do like the way he goes, or rather, I like the reason. We'll get there in a minute. So, Omega's gone, Rani's gone, Flood's gone. The only threat we have left is Conrad,
Which Ruby is currently talking to.
he's pointing a gun at her, and she basically says, "I want to say thank you," and he's like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe you. And she's like, "No, seriously. Conrad's world, it could have been so much worse."
Fair.
She says, I thought it was going to be all like booze and women and cars,
Yeah.
but it was nice. And And he says that the doctor told me that all people want is to be,
Warm and fed
and safe.
Yeah.
So that's what I gave him, basically. And she basically says, you just wanted everyone to have a family. She says, when we were together in our relationship, some of those feelings were real. You never actually opened up about your dad.
Yeah.
And he gets a bit fidgety. He looks a bit itchy on that trigger finger.
Yeah.
And then at this point, the bone palace shakes because, obviously, Omega.
Yeah.
And during the shake, Ruby teleports behind Conrad, and he 180s, and she's now holding baby Desiderium, and she kisses him on the head and says, "I wish to make Conrad happy," and then he fades away. He vanishes.
Yeah.
I like this. I like that she's so empathetic that this character who is despicable and deplorable in most ways.
Yeah.
She ultimately wants him to be happy.
Yeah.
Rather than just wish for him to be dead.
Yeah.
I do have this thing though. How does everyone know how this wish system works? How does she know she had to kiss his head?
I don't know.
I believe the Rani would just somehow know. Do you know what I mean? But how Ruby knows, I don't know.
Fuck knows.
Just got to accept it, I guess.
I guess, unless
maybe it doesn't really matter. It's just there to be a visual indicator to us that a wish is being used rather than someone just saying, "I wish something."
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe. But yeah, Conrad vanishes. The Doctor's now running because the palace is kind of disappearing right behind him. So he runs down the corridor. And when he gets to the room with Ruby and Desiderium in, the door kind of shifts and fades, and he realizes it's the front door of the TARDIS.
Yeah.
So the TARDIS has been there the whole time. That's where it was. It was the room that Conrad was in.
Yeah.
And Ruby realizes at the same time because she's standing there holding him, and the cot is still there, but she's now in the console room.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Doctor runs over. He opens the door, lets himself in. He's like, "Oh, hello," and you'd think she'd be like, "How did you get here?"
Yeah.
But he's just like, "Yep, hello." Runs up to the console, flicks some buttons, and they head back to Unit HQ. And just before this as well, Ruby wished for the wish to end.
Yeah.
Conrad's wish specifically. So that kind of ends this fake world. All the bone beasts disappear and all that stuff. And at this point, the Doctor takes the baby and he wishes for no more wishes.
Yeah. He even says, he's like, I know I have to do this, and I'm sad that I do, but it needs to stop.
Yeah. So now, having to test his theory, the Doctor runs downstairs to the Zero room, and he opens it up. Belinda's inside. And then the camera pans down. Poppy's there too. They're both safe. It worked. Everyone's applauding. Woo, yeah, clap, 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 clap. And the Doctor takes baby Desiderium to Carla Sunday. He says he's 100% human now. He's just from a place in time and space, and we don't know where. So he's essentially a foundling, which is kind of her whole deal. She adopts foundlings. So, because Ruby says, he's a foundling like me. And the Doctor goes, like me. And, she basically says, okay, yeah, I'll adopt him. And then Cherry says something like calling him Joseph because that was her dad's name or something like that, or husband's name. I can't remember. So he's a Joe Sunday.
Yeah.
Such a weird name.
I like the Cherry's like, but what about the paperwork? And the Doctor just sonics the air and he's like, sorted.
Yeah, sure, okay.
Okay.
So now Belinda and the Doctor set up a cot in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Poppy sat in there, and Ruby's just kind of watching them plan their adventures.
This is really good.
Yeah, this bit's
sad.
heartbreaking, yeah. So they're now planning their adventures as a trio. So Ruby's like, what are you going to do now? You're going to have a domestic life? And Belinda's like, no, my baby's not going to have a boring life. We're going to travel the stars, and we're going to go to Neptune and do all this stuff. And they're getting really excited. The Doctor gets Belinda's star certificate.
Yeah.
And he throws it out into space because he says, when the Earth was destroyed, the robots picked it up, but now because the Earth wasn't destroyed, he has to throw it out for the robots to pick it up from the robot revolution. So he does that. Okay, that's, I guess, good attention to detail. Yeah, he says this needs to happen to ensure that he and Belinda meet in the first place. So he throws it out. Everyone claps, and he's like, "Yep." He does a little bow, and then Ruby's watching them kind of talk about the future. Belinda's like, "Oh, are you hot, Poppy?" And then like takes her coat off. She's got this like yellow coat on, and they're planning not just their adventures in terms of where they're going, but like what they're gonna do, like making a toy room. I thought it was like, I can put a toy room back there, and any room you can think of, I can put it there.
I think this is brilliantly written because they slowly start from talking like very like baby orientated to like things that we should show Poppy, to things that we should do with Poppy, that things we should do, and then it's like, where should the two of us go next?
Whilst they're having this conversation, Belinda kind of folds the coat and passes it to the Doctor. Yeah. And the Doctor like folds it over like 2 more times and passes it back to Belinda. And they're doing this subconsciously while having this conversation. And then she folds it over like another 2 times. And Ruby's watching this happen and can obviously see this. It's quite a big kind of like puffer coat. But it's just getting smaller and smaller to the point where now it just looks like a cloth or like a piece of fabric. And then eventually the Doctor folds it over like a last time, and he kind of like claps his hands or like wipes his hands together. You're like,
it's like to dust them off.
Yeah, so like dust them off, and there's just nothing there.
Yeah.
And during this, my heart was sinking in this moment, because as soon as I realised what was happening when it's getting smaller and smaller, I was like, oh God.
Oh no.
Yeah, and obviously once it's gone, Ruby turns around and she looks at the cot and it's empty.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, man.
So sad.
Yeah. Poppy's vanished, and she basically, Ruby that is, says like, where's she gone? And the Doctor's like, where's who gone? And she says, Poppy. And he says, who's Poppy? Now, I just want to say, before we move on with this, there's a couple moments when we were watching this where I thought it was ending.
Yeah.
And it seemed to keep going. I thought this was going to be the ending, and I thought it was going to be really sad. And I thought it was going to be, you know, like the end of like series 4, where you have this really big triumphant moment where they defeat the Daleks and they tow the Earth home, and you get all these characters back together, and it seems great. But then you have that last minute, like, where the Doctor has to wipe Donna's memory.
Yeah.
Or even the bit in like End of Time, where the Doctor spends the whole episode thinking he's going to die, and then you find out, oh no, he's alive and he's going to make it. And then he hears the 4 knocks, and you get that last minute, like, oh, I thought this was going to be like that, and I thought we were going to have this nice big happy ending, and then have this really last minute like gut punch. But it keeps going.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That last sequence is great. I wouldn't change anything.
And I like the fact as well, I mean, again, it opens up so many questions, but before they do this, Ruby, earlier on, before they went to the Bone Palace and all that happened, she's trying to ask the Doctor why she was able to remember the other world. And
yes, because we get some flashbacks, don't we, to 73 Yards.
Yeah.
She says it's like, I can remember having lived through this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see her in 73 Yards, having already lived through 2025 in the later years. So that's kind of implied why she can, but obviously because none of the characters actually remember that happened.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, don't know.
Well, I think it's quite interesting, because she said obviously the people with disabilities, they remember because things aren't quite right.
Yeah.
But nobody else does. She's like, why do I? And obviously this shows up even more now, because Ruby notices that Poppy's...
She's the only one.
She's the only one.
Yeah. But it's funny, it would have been so easy to have this plot beat happen and just have Ruby look over and Poppy be gone.
Yeah.
So that whole moment where they're talking, and then, like you say, the conversation slowly turning more and more vague, and the coat getting smaller and smaller and disappearing is really good. Yeah, so at this point they go back to Unit HQ. They say now it's finally May 24th.
Yeah.
We finally reached tomorrow. And Ruby says, like, what about Poppy? And the Doctor's like, Ruby, I told you there is no Poppy. So Ruby's like asking everyone else. She's like, Kate, do you remember a girl called Poppy? She's like, no. She's like, Mel, no. Shirley, no. She asks the Vlinks, is there any record of a girl called Poppy being here on May 23rd? Nope. nothing. And the Doctor is like insisting that like Ruby's memory is wrong.
Yeah. And she even asks Susan Twist.
Yes.
She's like,
She says, yeah, you built a zero room for her.
And she's like, I did build a zero room.
But that was for us. She says that was for us all to get into.
Yeah.
And Ruby's like, yeah, we used it for Poppy, but no one can remember. And they kind of talk about there being like glitches in the world.
Yeah.
Because Ruby's like, is the world exactly how it was before? And it's either Kate or Shirley, I can't remember who one of them says, like, funny you say that, there are a few subtle differences.
Like the border of Denmark.
Border between Norway and Sweden has moved 7 miles east. The colour teal is a little bit more blue.
Yeah.
And the actor Ernest Borgnine is still alive.
And they also mention about Conrad as well, that now he's like a barista or something.
Yeah, because they talk to Mel, who's somewhere else. And she FaceTimes in. She's like, yeah, I checked in on Conrad. Yeah, he's like a barista in like a coffee shop or something. I looked into it. It's totally harmless.
Yeah.
And yeah, Ruby kind of says like, you got these glitches, these odd things that were different. And Poppy couldn't make it. Yeah, he gets to live.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But she kind of convinces everyone that she's right because of these other small details. She looks at the Doctor and she says, like, my memory must be one of these glitches. And the Doctor's kind of insistent that she never existed.
Yeah.
But Ruby says, no, this has happened before, do you remember? Because she compared it to her own existence from the Church on Ruby Road, how she didn't exist at one point.
Yeah.
And he was the only one that remembered her. Even her own mother forgot. And he had to, fight for her. And then at this point, Belinda remembers the Doctor saving her in the Robot Revolution from that time explosion.
Yeah.
And she says, like, you were at my birth. You saved me when I was like 7 from being hit by a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Unit all kind of agree that he fights for all of them. Every person's important.
Someone says it's kind of like we're your children.
It's Kate. Kate says, in a way, we're all your children. And then at this point, Anita's like, I've got to leave.
Yeah.
We're having this moment. I'm like, oh yeah, Anita's here.
This is one thing I wish. Maybe it would change the story completely, but I kind of wish that the world didn't reset. I know it's been done a million times, but the world didn't reset. However, Anita, having the time hotel, was able to take him back to the start of that day.
Right.
So he could kind of go back then, instead of like this thing constantly resets. Because then it would give it a bit more of a purpose, other than she's just come in and just saved him. And then she's like, oh yeah, it just, even though the rest of reality is kind of stopped, we're in the future and we're fine. It would kind of be a bit like, well, we've got this door to this date and I can help you use it to save the day, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
I know it's been done before, but I feel like it would give it the time hotel a little bit more, meaning.
At the moment, the time hotel only really seems to exist to get the Doctor out of that cliffhanger.
Literally just that. And there's like that whole thing of like reality soaks through, but how?
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of phrased as just like opening a door to just leave like a flow of it coming through.
But just,
it's like, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But yeah, last minute, I think because Anita has literally nothing to do other than hold a door open for an hour and then randomly interject this kind of sad personal moment with, I've got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of just makes it obvious, or it makes it stand out more. It makes it feel less organic, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, Anita says she's got to leave. She says, I had this day off.
Yeah.
But, I got to go now. I got things to do. She says, he says hello, by the way. And the Doctor's like, who? And she says, the boss.
Yeah.
And then leaves. And he just he looks off to the side for a second. He goes, parking that.
Yeah.
And then just goes back to the TARDIS. Presumably this is the same boss that the Meep talked about.
Yeah.
Still don't know who that is. So yeah, the Doctor finally agrees about Poppy. He says that a world with one less person isn't good enough. But he says to bring her back, you need to shift time by like a single degree, which is something only a Time Lord can do. So he promises Ruby and Belinda that he's going to find her, and he goes in the TARDIS, and he heads off. Again, this is another point where I thought it was going to end.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to end with him flying off, and I was like, oh man, season 2's whole thing has been about getting Belinda home. Is season 3's thing going to be about him
Finding Poppy?
Yeah. No, it keeps going.
Yeah. That would have been so good.
Yeah.
I wish that had been the case.
I'm not going to lie as well. When him and Belinda were talking with the cot and everything, they were talking about their adventures. Again, this is a point where I'm thinking very much it's on the table that Doctor Who is over now.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh my God, are they actually going to end it with him having a kid and like just imply he's going to have adventures with this child?
Yeah.
I thought that would be quite sweet, I guess. But obviously that didn't happen.
I didn't think that was going to happen.
But I mean, there's so many points because we don't know what the future of the show is at this point. I'm like, I don't know if they're trying to leave it open for another season or if they're trying to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So I genuinely didn't know where this was going.
I didn't think that they would go off with this child. I thought that they would be like, I thought they would have the discussion about what they would do, and then they would kind of have a disagreement kind of thing, and Belinda would put him in his place and be like, you know, we need to think of the child, not about... And unless you plan on, you know, stopping the life you have and looking after this child, like, I'll look after it alone kind of thing.
Belinda's up for it.
She is, yeah.
At this point. Yeah. But yeah, the Doctor is now in the TARDIS, and the TARDIS is kind of just floating around the time vortex, and he's thinking, and he says, oh man, I like this face. And at this point, I'm like, oh no, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, he's going to do something, and this is it.
Well,
and I was so sad.
No, even before then, he literally says, like, if I don't come back. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean if you don't come back?
Again, because none of us knew he was leaving.
No.
This was a surprise. I never thought this would happen in my life. But this was a surprise regeneration coming.
It was.
Yeah.
And I'm so sad and angry about it.
I'm glad it happened. Not that he's gone, because I think Shooty's great, and I've loved to have had another season with him. But I'm so glad that I was proven wrong, and we are able to do this.
Well, that's why I'm sad and angry, because I wanted more Shooty. I haven't had enough.
Yeah,
I'm not hit the point, because I know sometimes you say, oh, you know, it's good to have leave you wanting more.
Yeah,
but it's not like, you know, I'm pretty full, but I want dessert. It's like you've given me a tiny starter, and then you've said, there you go.
I think it's the same thing that I feel with the Ninth Doctor, though, where it's like,
I feel like that
having a shorter run is what makes the run we've got so sweet.
Yeah, but I feel like I think the issue is because of with the Ninth Doctor, it was well wrapped up. Because there's so many unanswered things. It feels like we what the hell are we going to build on next time?
You could watch series 1 and watch that cliffhanger at the end of Parting in the Ways and just assume, if someone told you, and that's how the show ends, you'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because everything, all the questions brought up are answered ultimately.
Yeah.
There's nothing kind of left over. Because that
and
doesn't...
his arc is done.
Well, that's the thing, because even in like series 2, you think like, yeah, everything's wrapped up, but you still have like the Daleks, that emergency temporal shifted away. Do you know what I mean? You still have these kind of like lingering threads where like, yeah, series 1 is kind of self-contained in a way. So I get what you mean with that. But I know that's I enjoyed Shooty a lot, but I feel like I could have happily had another season with him. I think he's great. But I think the fact that this is it now, I think that will make his 2 seasons sweeter.
No.
I think for me, I know not everybody enjoyed this era at all. A surprising amount of people who, like, in the community have not enjoyed this run. But I think even the episodes that I didn't love as much, I feel like I will watch now. I will see Space Babies and be like, it's, other than obviously the Christmas special, it's the first 15th Doctor story. Do you know what I mean? And I'll be like, I don't know, it'll hold that something. That's what I mean, like, Rose isn't like a great episode, but being Eccleston's introduction, it kind of has something special about it. And we talked about this when we covered it, didn't we? How the best part of that episode is all the Doctor stuff.
Yeah, but the issue is I have with this is won't see it as like oh yeah, look, it's the 15th Doctor's first episode. I'll be like, oh yeah, look, this is the 15th Doctor that we didn't get to fully see to the end. Like,
I don't...
Like, for example, I can't remember who it was in the group. I don't know whether it was you or Rob or Neve or Rebecca. But someone mentioned the fact that Rogue and the Doctor never got back together. And the fact that if they do now...
It's going to be different.
It's going to be different. Rogue, I'm assuming they could be bisexual, but...
Yeah,
do you mean it's like it's now a woman? And
yeah.
they thought... So it's like so much was set up and like hardly any of it was paid off. And now we have to have somebody else. We've got to learn about them and their character and their Doctor. I'm sure they'll have new stuff. And then we've got to pay off old stuff. There's just too much.
Yeah. I mean,
that's what's so frustrating.
That's fair. I don't think all of that, though, necessarily is tied to Shooty's tenure.
Most of it is.
I understand having these, like, wanting these questions answered and not wanting them lingering on. But I think a lot, like, we don't know about, like Susan, not Susan Twist, but Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter. So obviously she was popping up in flashback. We never had anything with her. So we don't know what that's about. That's a lingering plot thread, but that's something that isn't necessarily tied to Shooty's Doctor. I get Rogue is a little more. That's fair enough. But I think a lot of the things that are left over can be carried over.
But the issue is like, for example, because we were all talking about it beforehand and how the Susan thing is going to come into play. And I theorised that possibly Poppy was going to be his daughter.
Yeah.
And that was how it was going to go. So we were kind of getting closer to that.
Yeah.
And now it's like, no, that's not the case. We still don't know who Susan's parents are and how the Doctor had someone to have Susan.
We're jumping ahead now a little bit because the episode's not over.
Okay.
So just to get us, we'll talk more about this one, so we'll just get back on track for the episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Doctor says, "Oh man, I like this face," and yeah, he's clearly going to do something, but when he says that, he gets distracted because the TARDIS screen kind of lights up and he starts showing him his previous faces.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Now, why are you showing me that?" And it's funny because he goes, "I was the best." Just wanted to test you something on this, though. I know you've only seen this once, right?
Yeah.
When we saw it in the cinema. So fair enough. I don't expect you to actually get these, but I wonder if you can actually just remember. Of when we see these Doctors' faces, can you tell me where the stills are from?
Can you give me pictures?
Well, I don't have them ready. I thought you might have just recognized some of them.
Yeah, I probably did. I can't remember. It was like a week ago. I've slept since then.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go backwards.
Okay.
Just because I have something interesting about the first Doctor.
Okay.
But, so obviously 14th Doctor is literally from Power of the Doctor. It's literally right after the regeneration when he's feeling his face.
Yeah.
Fugitive Doctor's from Fugitive of the Jadoon. The 13th Doctor's from the Ghost Monuments. 12th Doctor's from Before the Flood.
Yeah.
11th Doctor from The Wedding of River Song. 10th Doctor in Forest of the Dead. The 9th Doctor in Rose. The War Doctor in Day of the Doctor. Fair enough. 8th Doctor in Power of the Doctor. Again, that was weird to me because it's in the Power of the Doctor. The 8th Doctor's there in like the Guardians of the Edge thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the TARDIS has footage of that.
I don't know.
Considering it took place in the Doctor's brain. 7th Doctor from The Curse of Fenric. 6th Doctor from Vengeance on Varos. 5th Doctor from The Five Doctors. 4th Doctor from The Invasion of Time. 3rd Doctor from Day of the Daleks. 2nd Doctor in The Three Doctors. And the reason I did this backwards, the scene of the first Doctor is not even the first Doctor.
Is it?
It's from a story called The Massacre.
Yeah.
Or sometimes called The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. And the character is actually the Abbot, who is... The whole gimmick of that episode is the Abbot is a character. He's just a human, but he's the spitting image of the Doctor. He's a duplicate.
There's got to be a reason for that. Surely.
I don't think so.
Surely.
I don't think so. It's just because I think it's obviously William Hartnell.
Yeah.
But it's just Yeah, I assume they just found some stock footage and they were like, yeah, that'll do. But yeah, that's technically not the Doctor in that bit of in that still.
I mean,
Yeah, okay, let's move on.
so maybe it is a little head nod for those who know. It's Russell T Davies. Nothing is done without meaning.
Well, I don't know. It might not even be a Russell choice. It could have just been whoever was editing it.
Yeah, but Russell would have watched it, and he would have known what it was from.
I don't know if he would have.
It's Russell. He would have known.
Fair enough. Okay. So yeah, the Doctor says, I was the best. And then we hear, well, best male. And then the Doctor turns around and it's the 13th Doctor. Jodie Whittaker is in the TARDIS.
Most people clapped.
We had claps.
We had lots of claps.
It's nice to see Jodie.
We had a couple of woo.
It's nice to see Jodie. It's nice to see Jodie written well.
Oh.
Yeah, well, I like this whole sequence too.
Yeah.
So yeah, she appears. And he's obviously shocked. He's like, what are you doing here? He says, I'm surprised it's not the other guy. He's always showing up. Which everyone liked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's basically trying to talk him out of whatever he's going to do.
Yeah.
She looks at the TARDIS and she says, you've redecorated. I don't like it. We love that line. She says, does it really need to be bigger in a room defined by its bigness?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, he says, what are you doing here? And she says, I've been popped out of my timeline because you've caused a great big time schism. And he basically says, what I'm going to do is punch a ton of regeneration energy into the vortex to try and jolt it by 1 degree. And she says, if you do that, you're going to kill yourself. And he basically says, a life for a life. And yeah, she's like, she looks at him sternly and then she kind of goes, that was never going to work. And then they have a hug. It's nice. Again, apparently one of Jodie's like biggest like regrets is that she never got to like interact with another Doctor.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time when they do their regeneration scenes, obviously the new Doctor's on set, where because they filmed the David Tennant stuff like way later.
Yeah.
She never got to do that. So this is her first time actually interacting with another Doctor. So that's quite nice, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they hug. He says, I just wish I had more time. And I love this. She says, may we always wish that.
Oh.
I think that's nice. So yeah, she's helping him with the calculations on the TARDIS. And as she's going to go, he says, I love you, Doctor. And she says, I don't say things like that. And he says, that's why you've got me.
Yeah.
Which I quite like. And then she goes, I should say that to Yaz. And he goes, you never do. She looks at him like, huh?
She's like, oh.
And he goes, but she knows. And yeah,
does she?
Well,
I don't think she does.
Don't question it.
I don't think she does. Well, love in the sense of like a buddy, but if the Doctor's meaning more than that, I don't think she does. I'm gonna just leave it that there.
So he says, yeah, she knows. And yeah, she kind of like turns around and then fades away. Yeah, brief interaction, but I like that a lot.
Yeah.
It's nice. I'm glad Shooty got to interact. If Shooty never got to interact with the Daleks, I'm glad he at least got to interact with 2 other Doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, at this point he stands by the console and he kind of puts his fists together and he kind of rips a ton of regeneration energy from his chest and he fires it into the TARDIS console. And at this point, obviously there's like sparks and explosions everywhere, as you tend to expect from a TARDIS set being regenerated in.
Yeah.
And it shatters. Not the TARDIS, the screen.
Yeah.
The screen shatters like it's made of glass. And then, again, I thought it was going to end here, but it didn't.
No.
We then cut to the Doctor waking up in a garden.
Yeah.
And now, again, this was a moment where I thought he was going to wake up and be in Donna's garden. I thought that, because obviously you know how the giggle ended with 14 and Donna and Sylvia and whatever.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be in Donna's garden, and I thought that we were going to see 14's last moments, and we were going to see him kind of disappear and getting pulled into the bi-generation.
Yeah.
Obviously that didn't happen because we're not in Donna's garden. We're in Belinda's garden.
Yeah.
Before Belinda rocks up, the Doctor, he realizes he started regenerating, his hand's glowing, but he kind of shakes it off and he says, like, no, not yet. Belinda appears and she calls him inside. When he goes in, Poppy's in there. So whatever he did worked. But he finds out that Poppy is just Belinda's daughter now. And she's kind of 100% human.
I'm assuming that this was done because they kind of have the thing where Belinda's like, remember, I've been telling you since the start. And then they add extra clips in where she's like, I need to get home for Poppy.
Yeah.
I need to get home by 7 o'clock for my daughter or whatever time it was.
Yeah, it's kind of implied she's always been saying that. I thought that was going to address... Do you remember I said... was it the Story in the Engine where I said, I'm finding it kind of annoying how every episode Belinda's saying, remember, Doctor, you have to get me home.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, oh my God, have I been outplayed?
Yeah.
But no, they kind of cheat.
Yeah.
Because they kind of insert clips that weren't there originally.
Yeah.
Because there's the bit, you know, where she's like, where she got shot in the well, and she's like, am I going to see my daughter again? And I'm like, yeah, that didn't happen.
That didn't happen, no.
So we're kind
So
of...
I'm assuming that what he did, he created a new timeline.
Yeah.
And therefore these things have been added in.
Yeah. So he asks who the father is, and she says, Richie.
Yeah, she's like, I told you this before.
Yeah, he's like, tell me again.
Yeah.
So her and Richie have separated, but he sees Poppy all the time. He's a good dad. Yeah, so the Doctor's kind of like smiling through all this. And then Belinda's mum rocks up, and Belinda pops outside to speak to her. And the Doctor kind of leans into Poppy and says, can I tell you a secret? And she like nods her head. He says, I can't have children, but if I could, I wish that she'd be just like you.
That's so sad. Also, I mean, he doesn't really know much about this child.
We'll get into that.
Is that I wish it's just like you. All you know is that she likes saying no.
She likes cats.
She likes cats and she likes no. I think that's most children, though, to be fair.
So Belinda comes back in and she says basically that she would love for the three of them to travel together, but it's too dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is obviously, this is very different to the mindset that Belinda had when they were in the TARDIS.
That's what I struggled with that Belinda. Because I thought the whole time she's been so, please get me home, and she's been very stern with him and like, this is dangerous. When they were talking about it, I mean, I thought anyway that it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But I thought that was going to be the reason why. So when she was like, oh yeah, we can go on adventures and I want my daughter to see all of this, I was like, who are you? Like,
yeah, no, that's fair.
Where have you taken Belinda?
Yeah. But yeah, obviously the Doctor's plan worked, but also kind of backfired a little bit.
Yeah.
Because now he's not going to have him, Belinda and Poppy adventure. They're obviously staying where they are, and he's going to leave on his own. So as he's heading out towards the TARDIS, Belinda asks if she's going to see him again. And he says, I hope so. I hope we'll see each other again. But it won't be like this. And he kind of points at his face. And she says, I feel like I've forgotten something. And he says, that's our lives. Beautiful things can be forgotten and gone, but they still happen somewhere. And he says, I love you. And then he walks into the TARDIS and it disappears. I thought it was going to end there.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
No.
Again, I like a lot of the dialogue in this episode. I think that's lovely.
Yeah,
that thing about beautiful things can be forgotten and gone, but they still happened.
Yeah, I agree.
That's
I like
nice.
that as well.
Yeah. So now, this is actually the ending now. So the Doctor's...
Well, see, because this is where I thought it was going to end.
Well, yeah.
Before it ended the way it ended.
Right, yeah. So the TARDIS is out in space, in front of like a nebula, and the Doctor's preparing to regenerate. One note I just want to make here, I love the music in this scene. It's great. I really hope that Murray actually chooses to release this freaking soundtrack. Because he's not released anything since Series 9.
I think they've got him kind of...
Other than the Goblin King song.
I think they've got him, by knife point after Duggadoo.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
He's like, well, I've got to now.
I could take or leave everything else. I want 15's theme.
Yeah, I agree.
And I want this song.
Yeah.
I
It
want
was
this on my
amazing.
playlist. Music's great here.
He says that he doesn't want to do it alone.
Yeah, he says, I don't want to do this alone. So he opens the doors of the TARDIS and he looks out into the distance. Again, during this, because the camera's on him initially, I thought this was just going to be more of a thematic thing about him being open to the universe or something.
Yeah.
But no, obviously, once we see what he's looking at, we see a star in the distance. A constant friend, you could say.
Yeah.
And it's Joy Almondo,
Yeah.
the star of Joy to the World. He says, I'm never alone with you, joy to the world. And then his last words are, and that is exactly the word. This has been an absolute joy.
And then he
regenerates.
Well, he has regeneration energy. I thought that's then what was going to happen. I thought it was going to end here.
Me too. I
was like, damn.
Because, yeah, he's regenerating, and it's a big regeneration as well.
It's like... Because he's not even in the TARDIS. Usually he is.
No, he's standing on, like, the doorstep, and he's regenerating out into space, but, like, instead of just kind of flowing out of him, it's, like, firing like lightning across the galaxy.
He's kind of floating out of it.
He's kind of doing, like, the Michael Jackson lean.
No, it was in, like, I think he's out.
No, he's not. He's standing on the doorstep, but he's, like, leaning forward. He's, like, doing the smooth criminal thing.
Because I thought because I'm almost certain it came out of his feet as well.
It might have come out of the toes, I don't know, but he's definitely standing on the TARDIS. He's not floating. But yeah, he's regenerating, and then we get this close-up shot of his face, and the energy kind of takes over and drowns him out. And then, yeah, I thought we were just going to, like, cut, or we were going to, like, fade to white or something. But we don't. He fades out, the regeneration energy comes up, and then as it disappears, we see Billy Piper.
I'm not going to lie, my jaw hit the floor. Like...
Yeah, so...
And it was so funny because I was sat on one end and then it was Neve and Rebecca, Connor and then Rob on the other end.
Yeah.
And my jaw was just like wide open. I looked. Rebecca looked confused. Neve also looked confused. You looked shocked and Rob looked distraught. Like, it was so funny to look across. Rob's head was in his hands. You were just like... Oh. And I kind of looked back and there was some guys behind us and they were like, one guy just went, what the fuck?
Yeah, didn't we speak to Rebecca afterwards and she said, I didn't even know who it was. I didn't recognise
She said
her.
until the credits came up, she went, is that Billy Piper? I was like, yeah, it was.
Yeah, so Billy Piper's there and then she spikes the camera and says, oh, hello. And that's it.
Yeah.
Now, like I say, so much to unpack. There's a reason I needed like a week to unpack this episode. There's so much going on.
The end 20 minutes, my God, was so much.
Yeah.
It was too much.
There's a couple moments where I thought it was going to end and I would have been okay with all of them.
Except the last one.
Yeah, except the one we got. That's where I'm like, oh, for God's sake. Because I'm like, if Doctor Who is over, if Disney don't renew, BBC don't want to continue, and that is it, and that is how it ends, I just can't, okay? That may go down in history as one of the worst endings
Of
to anything ever.
Yeah.
If they carry on, I don't think they can pay it off in a way that's satisfying. Now, I know people are like, hey, there's a lot of cope out there, and people are like, oh, well, look, when the credits roll, it says Jodie Whittaker is the Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa is the Doctor, but it just says introducing Billy Piper. What if she's not the Doctor? I don't care if she's not the Doctor. What is she doing here?
Yeah.
She has no business being here. What Ncuti has been undermined by having to regenerate from David Tennant and now into Billy Piper.
Yeah. I agree.
A Doctor's regeneration story should always be about saying goodbye to the current version, not saying hello to the new one.
Yeah. Because what I initially said what I would have liked is if Ncuti had either said that he, I don't know, wanted to end it here or wanted to go on a break for a while, I would have liked us to have seen Joe, is it Joe Martin?
Yes.
I would have liked to have Ncuti regenerate, we not see who he'd regenerated into, but next year's lot be Joe's.
Have it be like a sidestep, maybe.
Yeah, and basically be like, going back to
like
some of her stories.
Yeah, pre Hartnell, see some fugitive Doctor stuff, and then in like 2027 or something,
actually have that thing
have
of
the
like regeneration. I would have
Doctor
liked
number
that
16, yeah.
because then she would have had chance to actually show us more. We could have got some stories because we've heard like one or two stories that she's said that she's been through, but obviously we haven't experienced them. So I would have liked that.
Yeah.
I obviously, now that we know it's going to be Billie Piper, I don't think that's going to be the case.
There's no way they can pay this offer I'm going to be happy about.
I think it was
Because I know, again, this isn't like I don't like them reusing actors. This is what can they do? Because people again go like, oh, it's not as if characters haven't like come back to the show before in a new role. I'm like, yeah, but there's got to be a reason for it.
Yeah.
And I think,
I agree.
like Colin Baker's, you're like, okay, they use the 80s. Do you know what I mean? It was like whatever. Peter Capaldi's made sense for the narrative.
Yeah.
It did. Because the whole thing about reminding himself to always try to save at least one person and to be kind and that stuff. I get it. That's fine. I liked it. I thought it was cute. David Tennant, it was nice to see him back in the role, but the reasoning for him having that face was very wishy-washy.
Yeah.
They were like, it was the Doctor subconsciously telling himself that he needed to rest or something.
Yeah.
He needed a break, so he was given a face to lead him to a friend that knew that face. It was like,
that,
sure, if you want, but like
the only way I could think of it, which you could go down, that is kind of brought up a little bit, is in Day of the Doctor, where Tom Baker,
the curator, he says you'll find yourself revisiting faces.
Yeah. He's like, you have a couple of favourites.
Yeah.
Again, I think, and I know this sounds sad because I think we should really give Billie Piper a go. I'm sure she'll do a great job. Do you mean she's...
I don't question Billie Piper as an actress. It's just
the stories
there is
behind
no
it,
answer to this where I'm going to be like, yeah, that was satisfying. That was worth the turmoil I had to go through in the cinema.
That's the thing. The worst thing is I think for this to actually be like... what's the word? For it to feel warranted, she's only got to be there a small time, but then it'll be just like David Tennant.
Exactly. This is what I mean. I don't want 2-3 seasons of Billie Piper as Doctor 16. I don't want that.
No.
But at the same time, I don't want her to do like 3 specials or do a Christmas special, because again, it's just going to feel like doing the David Tennant thing again.
Yeah. I mean, I think if she did a season, that would be fine.
No, I don't know. That's the thing. Like, I know people are like, oh, well, she's not credited as the Doctor. I bet it's something like, because Rose absorbed the heart of the TARDIS or whatever, this isn't going to be the Doctor. It's going to be like the TARDIS manifesting. So I don't care. I don't want this. Like, the show is supposed to be about moving forward.
I mean,
its reliance on nostalgia baiting 2006 is starting to get annoying.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To be fair, I think that was always an issue with Russell coming back. And this is one thing.
I had optimism because
I know we'll discuss this further in the wrap up, but one thing that has massively infuriated me since Russell's come back is the fact that he's like, we've done a clean slate. This is one again.
Yeah.
And I have never known.
This is the least accessible era of the show possibly ever.
I've never known a TV show that has ever done this in such a bad way. I mean, I don't know loads of Doctor Who knowledge, but
you know more than the average viewer.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
And I am like, who the fuck is that? Who is this?
I do agree.
Is this supposed to be something important?
Yeah. Or is this just a throwaway?
And then I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, so this is an important thing. This is a bad guy. Oh, they've been defeated in 5 minutes. Okay, that obviously wasn't that important. That's been done twice. Stop it. You either go from like a full reset, which they kind of did. Like, who is this for? Like, because you did the thing of like, we'll tell you exactly who the Doctor is and what he can and can't do, but then it's also like, remember this villain? No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so I mean, it is confusing to.
And I know you can't like do a full reset because people who love the show,
you can't possibly do that without rebooting it. and basically saying everything else is not canon anymore.
But even if you kept it as canon, do you mean there's that? I mean that end episode, the Wish World and the Reality War, contained so much. Like nearly every word that came out was like something from old Who, and it's not very digestible for people who. Do you mean if you're trying to create a legacy for Doctor Who, it's already got it, but if you're trying to keep it going on into the future,
you need to keep making new stuff to have a legacy. You can't just keep.
You need to get people on board. You can't do this because it'll shut people out and people won't want to watch because they don't understand.
Yeah, that's something I like it when it refers to its own history. I like it when it brings stuff back. That's fine, especially when it's more subtle, like the what was it called, like the Indigo thing or whatever.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Nod.
That's like, hey, if you know it, that's cute. If not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. The fact that this was marketed mostly from Disney's perspective, obviously, but because they don't have the old stuff, so marketing it as season 1 made sense for them. But again, you can't market it as season 1 and say this is a good jumping on point for new viewers, and then make it arguably the least accessible era of the show to newcomers ever in 60 years.
That's what I mean. No. Again, I like Disney anyway. I know, look, they have a lot of flaws, but no fucking reason they aren't renewing the contract. Because why would people who don't know about the show watch this? You start, there's a cute couple of things and you're lost. Do you mean there's so much information to take on board? And Doctor Who should never be that. It should be something that you sit down, it's a nice episode to watch. Do you mean you can watch the arc that builds up? But it should never be like information dump constantly.
Yeah.
Because what's the point? And I think that's what my main gripe is with this. Not only is it information dump, but it's not worth it. Again, you're not getting a what's the word? Satisfying payoff. It's just what's the point? Again, I don't see the point of the Doctor going back and then saving Poppy and then Poppy not being his daughter. It's story, yes, but then it's like I'd rather that had been cut out. And like the fact that the Doctor didn't even go back and say goodbye to Ruby. Yeah.
This is what I mean. I think a lot of this is to do with those last minute reshoots.
Agreed, it is. But I think that it felt so rushed.
But then again, you could argue the same thing about the way 13 left Yaz.
Yeah, but that felt less so than this.
I don't know. Here's what I'll say. The idea of 15 going, because he doesn't get shot, or he doesn't, it's nothing like the way 13 went. It's the same thing as 9 and 10, which is a self-sacrifice to save one person. And I love that. And I think not only is that very Doctor, but that's very 15. For that one person to be a child, or his child.
That's important.
But yeah, I know what you mean. But like, I like that thematically. I think the reason it struggles is I don't care about Poppy.
I agree. Because we saw her once.
I don't think it's to do with how much we've seen her. I think it's the fact that she doesn't have a personality.
Because she's a child.
Yeah, but again, we've had child actors with a personality. The girl that plays Poppy, I know she's a child. I mean, I'm not going to be like, oh, her acting's not good, but I'm like, she doesn't really emote.
But yeah,
she never looks scared. She never looks happy. She never looks frightened. She just sits there with a blank look on her face the whole time. Other than the beginning of Wish World, where she's saying meow and she's like, yeah, I want a cat or whatever, and she's being a bit cheeky. Do you know what I mean? After that scene where she's being a bit cheeky and the aunt says like, oh, you need plenty of time to drum that out of it, she basically never says a word or expresses an emotion ever again.
I agree.
And I think if she looked scared when she was put into the Zero Room, if she was looking excited or happy when she was in the cot and they were talking about the adventures, if she just had something to say, I know she's a child,
but give her
some lines, give her a couple of words, something. Do you know what I mean?
For us to care,
because she's basically just a plot device and not a character. I don't care.
I agree.
The only reason I feel like I should care is because Shooty cares.
Well, that's the thing.
Because that's the thing. The way Belinda reacts when she's like, "How dare you suggest I don't have a daughter?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not." Everyone's like, "Oh, she's not really real. She only exists in the wish." And Belinda's like, "How dare you?" I'm like, "I don't know why you're getting so uppity about this."
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe it's different. Do you know what I mean, being a mother?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't put myself in that position, but there's an element to me that's like, you're acting a bit unreasonable. But when Shooty does it, I believe it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to care because he cares. But I just don't, because I know nothing about this character.
And that's the thing I don't understand with... Maybe it's the fact that she's also questioning it. With Belinda's character, she's like, how dare you say I don't have a child? Yet, like, earlier on that day, she was like, I can't even remember giving birth to you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel quite right. I agree. I maybe that's another reason why I'm salty, because I just want more I want more Shooty.
But that's
more
what I mean.
15,
I
and I'm
feel
like, oh, he's died to save this child that doesn't even matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're not going to see Poppy again. And she's not like an important thing. She's just Belinda's daughter.
I don't think it necessarily matters whether she's important or not.
It does to me.
Why? Important what?
In the sense of like, well, again, it's like to feel like, okay, the Doctor's given his life, but at least it's for something not plot related, but basically plot related. Do you mean it's his daughter? Or even if he gave his life thinking it was his daughter, and then we find out that it's not. Do you mean?
Like
the fact that he literally does it, then goes back and it's like, not your daughter, and then he just goes into the TARDIS and dies. Do you mean? It's like,
I'm not sure if that's just kind of a bad writing choice, or whether that's meant to be something about, because Ruby says, you know, the Doctor says loads of times, but Ruby reinforces a little earlier. She says the pantheon of gods play tricks.
yeah.
I do wonder whether that's meant to be something like that, or whether that's just a case of, it was a bit of a rushed reshoots and they had to write something up quick and they didn't really think about it and it doesn't make sense. Obviously, there's no way of us knowing really without getting more.
But then it's that thing of like, okay, there's so many plot holes with this. Why it bothers me so much with the whole wishes thing.
Yeah.
Right. We'll go back to this. We've ended the episode. We might as well just have a rant.
Go on.
I'm gonna have a rant. Two things that I would have said. One, when they had the wish baby, why didn't the Doctor wish that Poppy didn't disappear when the world went back? I think that's a fair enough wish, because he already thought that could happen. So just wish that she doesn't.
I guess
vanish.
because what he was going to wish was that there were no more wishes, so that would have been rendered null and void anyway.
But then, Conrad.
But that's what I mean. Conrad was one of the glitches, wasn't he?
But was he one of the glitches?
Well,
Again, he said no more wishes. So he said that means, I'm assuming, no further wishes.
I feel like for sci-fi Virgin on magic, I feel like you're getting way too like in the nitty gritty of this.
But
I don't think that's important.
It is important though, because then again, if that's the case, then he could have wished this. Again, why didn't the Rani wish that they could reproduce instead of wishing for a magical world to then get a guy from the underworld to then him to help them reproduce? Why didn't,
I guess,
like, if you've got the almighty god of wishes, why don't you actually use it?
because it's that thing. I mean, she said he wasn't powerful enough to create a world. Do you know what I mean? So if she used the Vindicator to like boost his energy and then got Conrad to make him wish, or just use herself to wish that Gallifrey was back and the Time Lords were back, that would only last as long as Desiderium was able to hold the wish.
But not necessarily just create a world. Just if she just wished that, I don't know, her and the Doctor were able to create other Time Lords. Because it makes too much sense, that's why.
No, I just don't think it's the point.
But then it's like, well, if this is supposed to be these uber smart beings, why are they so dumb?
Look, we don't know what the limitations on Desiderium are.
Oh, get in the bin.
Well, we don't, but it's like, again, I feel like that's I feel like nitpicking the logistics of the wish stuff. It's like I don't think it's the point. Again, the wish stuff is purely a catalyst to get the themes of the episode across.
Yeah, but then what's the point of TV? Do you know what I mean? If you
to tell a story.
Yeah, but if you're just if you're just making stuff up to be like, oh well, so we get to the final point. That's not the point of this. Do you mean you need to have solid ground for it all to work?
I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. But personally, I'm not bought any of that you just said about the logistics of the wish. I don't care personally. I don't think it's all that important.
Like I said, it's a couple of things. I mean, I'm just ranting.
You go on.
But if you don't like it, then sign out. But like, for example, earlier I know you said about Ruby not knowing how would she know how the wish using desert is. Why couldn't she have just held it and just like genuine being like, Conrad, I just wish you to be happy, and then that had caused it.
Because that makes it come across more like an accident rather than her making a selfless decision.
Yeah, but it's in like, and you could say, oh, you know, because she truly wished that it was a true wish.
Again, it's one of those things that, like, yeah, you could add a bit of like flim-flam dialogue about how like a wish has to be genuine or something. But then again, it's like, how do you define genuine? Like, do you know what I mean? Rani wouldn't have been able to turn a man's children into ducks.
Yeah, but you could say that's the reason why she went, mwah, and then, but the fact that she just had to hold it.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that where I'm like, okay, you can argue, like, say, like, I brought it up myself. You can be like, yeah, how did Ruby know that you had to kiss the forehead and do that? But I'm like, in my head, I don't care that much. It's one of those things where I'm just like, I just see that as, because TV is like a visual medium, that's just a visual way of getting across to the audience that she is making a wish.
I know, but I just feel like this is why I get annoyed by the season finales, because I'm like, I very rarely watch TV, but I'm like, I've literally given you my time. I've waited for this. I've earned this.
If it's,
and
I mean,
it's paid off this way.
I was going to say if it's any consolation. It's not a consolation. It's not a good thing. But Doctor Who very rarely lands with the series finales.
I know, but that's a bad thing. Why?
I know. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying I don't think that isolates Russell T Davies or it isolates this era.
No, I don't think it does. But that's why I get frustrated.
If you just look since the revival, there are 13 seasons plus 2, so 15 seasons. And I would say, maybe 5 of them have good finales.
So,
like, one, 2. I know you don't agree, but 4 I think is pretty good. 8 is okay. 10 is great. And that's about it.
But even then,
do you know what I mean? It's like, in reality, like, season 3's finale is not the best, or series 3, sorry. Series like 5, 6, 7, not the best. You know, most of Jodie's stuff, do you know what I mean? The Battle of Ranskorath Kolos is one of my least favourite episodes of the show ever. Timeless Children, controversial. Then obviously Flux.
I wish we could change that. I wish if there's anything that I wish to go further or go in the future, is that changes.
Well, the finales become good.
Yes.
Well,
they become worth it, and they actually genuinely really thought out. Like, there's multiple rewrites on them, and I want them to be airtight.
Yeah.
I know that's
one thing.
It's a big ask, but it's like, just focus on that.
But I think that's something you can say about those early seasons. Obviously, we just finished series 2, and that's pretty airtight.
Yeah, pretty.
Do you know what I mean? Everything in it, there's no plot holes.
No.
The only kind of thing I can think of...
a couple of, like, wishy-washy things, but...
The only thing I can think of is how when Rose is, like, falling into the void, and then Pete's, like, teleports and catches her, it's like, 1, how does he know when to go there? And 2, why doesn't he get sucked in as well? But, like, other than that, like...
And there's also, like, the teleporting things as well, like...
It's the same thing.
No, it's in, like, they say, like, only one person can go through on them, but there's a couple of occasions where multiple people go through on one.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
But it's like, do you mean things like that most people overlook? But But I
Well,
wish for us to get there again.
Yeah, we'll talk about this more in detail when we do our Season 2, Series 15
Yeah,
roundup.
because I can imagine this episode is quite good.
I'm not even going to look, okay? Right.
I can't even see.
Well, don't worry about it.
It's not that bad, actually.
So, right. So overall, what did you think? Did you enjoy this finale overall?
I genuinely don't know.
That's fair. Like
I'm
I say,
steering onto the no than the yes.
Okay. I personally am steering onto the yes. I don't think it's amazing, but I think I'm floating maybe like 6 out of 10. The Billy Piper ending infuriates me.
It doesn't bother me.
But that's what I find interesting.
That's what I mean. This is what I'm saying. Like I don't mind by that because it's something. I know we've seen Billy Piper before in as Rose and as the moment. Yeah. So it's kind of like, why is she back? But it's also, why is she back? Like,
the thing is, I don't care why she's back. But that's what I mean. I think the
interested.
difference is what I'm put off by that because it has ramifications for the very nature of this show.
Yeah.
Where what the things you don't like come across to me like nitpicks.
Whereas for me, I'm saying, well, quite frankly, they can't get the basics right, so fuck the ramifications.
I don't
else.
see, but that's the thing. I don't see the nitpick details as the basics.
I think it is.
I think those are just leaks that form in any script.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I see
like,
the fundamental direction of the show as the big point.
Yeah, but my point is, leaks that fall into any script is perfectly fine when you're a newbie. But a lot of people on this team have been doing this a long time.
I know what you're saying, but I don't think that necessarily makes your point true about that being the main focus.
Well, it's not the main, it's my main focus. I mean, let's be fair. As I said, many people walking out that cinema, they weren't caring about those. They were caring about Billy Piper. So maybe that's the case, but that's my main gripe with this.
Well, like I said, we'll talk about this more in detail when we cover our series roundup. The only sort of bit of trivia I've got is that this is one of 12 TV stories in which the TARDIS does not appear at all. And by that, I mean Wishworld specifically, obviously, because it does appear in The Reality War.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wishworld is one of 12 stories. The other ones being from Classic Who, we got Mission to the Unknown. There's no Doctor in that at all. That's the only episode of the show with no Doctor.
Oh.
And then we got Doctor Who and the Silurians, The Mind of Evil, The Demons, and The Sea Devils, which are all John Pertwee in unit.
Yeah.
We've got The Sontaran Experiment and Genesis of the Daleks, which are Tom Baker stories. And then that's genuinely it for Classic Who. And then going into the revival, we've got Midnight. We've got The Lie of the Land.
Is Midnight it's not shown once?
No.
Not even like at the end when they're like...
Mm-mm.
Oh,
It ends with them.
weird.
It ends with them like they're in
By
like a
a pool.
cafeteria or by a pool or something, and they're just kind of chatting in the spa, aren't they? Midnight, The Lie of the Land, The Woman Who Fell to Earth, Ascension of the Cybermen, and obviously this one, Wishworld.
I mean, Woman that Fell to Earth. Isn't she falling out the TARDIS at the start?
No, that's the end of Twice Upon a Time.
Oh, so she's like falling.
Yeah, first time you see the Doctor in The Woman Who Fell to Earth, she just falls through the roof of a train.
Oh yeah, go. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but yeah, that's genuinely it.
Wow.
That's all I've got. On that note, I'm exhausted.
Me too.
This is a lot to cover. It's a lot to think about. It was a lot to remember.
It was a lot to listen to. I'm sure.
Congratulations if you made it this far. I'm so sorry.
You are a true Doctor Who fan.
Have a chocky.
Yeah.
On me. Not on me. I'm not paying for it. But
On me metaphorically.
have that, he said. Have that on me.
Yeah. Eat your chocolate and think of us.
Actually, don't do that. Right, yes. So thank you all very much for listening. We appreciate you very much as always.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe to keep up with everything that we're doing. You can find us over on YouTube Music, on Apple Podcasts, or on Spotify, whatever your platform of choice is. Leave a lovely comment for Charlotte. She likes to hear your thoughts.
I do like to hear the thoughts, but you don't have to leave a lovely comment for me. It's okay. Don't feel like you have to do it. It's fine. Just thank you for being here.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next time when God knows what's going to happen. We don't know where the show's going.
No. Next time we'll be doing a season wrap up.
Yeah.
I'll be taking over.
Yes, and then after that, I guess we're jumping back to series 3. We're going to be doing The Runaway Bride.
We are going to have a tiny little break.
Yes.
I know we've already kind of had a tiny little break, but we had to process stuff.
Yes. But yeah, that's about it. So once again, thank you all for listening. And don't forget to stay safe. Stay away from bone dinosaurs.
Sure.
Stay away from babies.
Stay away from museums.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye.